Those goblins are downright sly.
Are your eyes as sharp as a hawk? Come challenge yourself! Take up the challenge!
Idle hands make for a dull mind.
I'm ready.
On my mark!
Finally.
Don't let this fervor fade. On to the next round!
Huh. You look like you could hold your own.
I'm ready.
On my mark!
I watched the Greymanes in battle. Their skills
That
were
was a
beyond
great game.
compare.
Care to loose a few more arrows?
I'm gonna have fun with you.
I'm ready.
On my mark!
can't be.
That was a great game.
Don't let this fervor fade. On to the next round.
I won't let you win so easily.
I'm ready.
On my mark. Don't let this fervor fade. On to the next round.
We can't afford to relax.
I'm ready.
On my mark. Care to loose a few more arrows? On my mark. You can't call it quits here. Holding all sharpshooters. Step right up. That's right. Are your eyes as sharp as a hawk? Come, when you're ready, we'll begin.
Idle hands make for a dull mind.
On my mark.
I watched the Greymanes.
You can't call it quits here.
That's the way of it.
I'm ready.
On my mark. Care to loose a few more arrows? Holding all sharpshooters, step right up. Perfect chance to show off your archery skills.
Idle hands make for a dull mind.
On my mark.
I watched the...
You're not bowing out just yet, are you?
Alas! Someone worth squaring off with.
On my mark. You're not bowing out just yet, are you?
Have you been practicing much?
I'm ready.
On my mark. Care to loose a few more arrows? Holding all sharpshooters. Step right up. When you're ready, we'll begin.
Huh. You look like you could hold your own.
On my mark.
I watched the Greymanes in battle. Their skills were
That was a
beyond
great
compare.
You're not bowing out just yet, are you?
Let's have at it.
I'm ready.
On my mark.
I'm on a winning streak.
You're not bowing out just yet, are you? Holding all sharpshooters. Step right up.
Learn your place. A good evening to you. back. Salutations.
entirely his fault.
Hey there,
And in a
I'm
couple
back.
cases, like in the one we're about to talk about that just happened a couple hours ago, under the influence of some substances, he has been charged with DUI in this one. He has an extensive history of these kind of accidents dating all the way back to 2009 when he crashed into a fire hydrant in his neighbor's
17.8
yard.
million
Like,
subscribers.
had to pull him from the vehicle. He went to a hospital and was later released. No charges were pressed there. However, a bit of a different story in his second go around here.
Alright, what to draw? What to draw?
Wheel of his vehicle and crashed. He was arrested and found to have prescription drugs and marijuana in his system. He pled guilty to reckless driving, but avoided jail time thanks to a plea deal. They then later dropped the charges of DUI and then spent a year on probation. And then in 2021, he had a major accident. It was a rollover crash where his SUV ended up rolling down a steep embankment. The police said that the crash was caused by excessive speed. He was traveling at 87 miles per hour in a 45 zone and inability to navigate the curve. He needed surgery. He sustained serious injuries. But they didn't seek a warrant for blood tests because they said there was no evidence of impairment or intoxication, so there was no charges filed. It was ruled an accident. I feel like if this was any ordinary Joe Schmo, there probably would have been some charges for going fucking 87 miles per hour in a 45 zone. Was this guy trying to travel back in time like it's the DeLorean? Like, this is absurd. It's a miracle he didn't kill himself or someone else on the road. And really, it's miraculous
I don't like it.
he
If you don't like it,
killed
delete it.
someone else from
Delete
all
your-
of his accidents, including the one today, which was another rollover crash that he was involved in. It seems like Tiger Woods is more accustomed to his vehicles being on their side than on their four wheels. Now, this time it is a little different because they are pressing charges for DUI because they did see signs of impairment, not from alcohol, but from substances. Like, Tiger Woods and
It's high.
automobiles just do not mix at all. It's like fucking SpongeBob with the boatmobiles. I now truly understand how Mrs. Puff must have felt every time SpongeBob got behind the wheel of the boat.
Famed golfer Tiger Woods was involved in a rollover car crash, according to the local sheriff. Our affiliate WPTV posted this photo from the scene. We're told the crash is in Martin County, Florida. That's about 27 miles north of Palm Beach. Local police say the Martin County Sheriff's Office is handling the crash investigation. The 50-year-old golfer played in a match Tuesday in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida.
Tiger Woods has unimaginable
What do you do?
You would think that he would have a driver, or at the very least, pay for an Uber when he is under the influence. Yet, multiple times throughout his life, he insists on driving impaired. Again, it is miraculous that he hasn't killed someone else or killed himself in one of these accidents. Genuinely, he should not have his license any longer. For the safety of all the innocent people that have to share the road with them, he cannot be trusted behind the wheel of a vehicle. He is a worse driver than the drooling zombies in Grand Theft Auto Online who are like intentionally crashing into people and things. This guy is fucking dangerous behind the wheel of an automobile, and he cannot stop himself from driving impaired. It's such a crazy and sad fall from grace for Tiger Woods because he is undoubtedly one of the best to ever do it in his respective sport. One of the best golfers of all time, just so dominant. But over the years, he has sabotaged his legacy, wiped his ass with his reputation. Like, I remember in 2010, when all of his affairs were coming to light about how he was having sex with, like, every woman on the planet with a pulse, you had to be, like, checking under your bed just to make sure Tiger Woods wasn't waiting there to fuck your mother. And now, like, all of these accidents, it's just, it's so sad.
That's pretty funny.
It really is.
So just before 2 p.m. today, the Jupiter Island Police Department, which is where we currently are, received a call of a rollover crash about 2.5 miles from where we are. The Jupiter Island Police Department responded out there and found
Jupiter Island?
a pickup truck pulling a pressure cleaner trailer and a Land Rover which was rolled over on the driver's door. And we're going to provide you photos of that. The investigation started, and initially, right off the top, it did appear that the driver of the Land Rover might be impaired.
Here's one of the photos from the crash that's been circulating. You can see that his vehicle is rolled over and it's in front of a fire hydrant. This is 2 out of 4 of his crashes right around fire hydrants. One of them, it had him blasting the fire hydrant, so I guess this is a marginal improvement there because he didn't just destroy it. This time he crashed in front of it. Don't exactly know what that
Did fire
means.
hydrants
Maybe
kill
there's
his family?
something about fire hydrants that makes Tiger Woods want to crash into them or crash around them. Anyway, though, when the authorities showed up to the scene, they noted signs of impairment. They believed that he could have been under the influence. So immediately, it's something that they started to pursue and
Oh.
investigate.
Our
Oh, keyboard.
investigation revealed
Oh,
as
no.
follows.
What did I do?
Shortly again before 2, the pressure cleaner truck pulling a trailer, a small
go.
trailer, was northbound on South Beach Road and was pulling kind of to turn into a driveway. It was slowing down, starting to turn into a driveway. And the driver of that vehicle looked in his mirror and saw a Land Rover, a dark-colored Land Rover, overtaking him at high speeds, and I don't know those speeds.
If history's taught us anything, it was probably 87 miles per hour through there. That would be my guess. If I had to give a little ballpark figure there, I would estimate probably 87 miles per hour off the dot, is what I would say. He seems to love to just fucking zoom through in excess of 80 miles per hour in these zones that are not conducive to those kinds of speeds.
The Land Rover kept overtaking him. He saw it coming, so he tried to edge off to the side of the road, but
He's edging.
this is a small 2-lane road, and there was no shoulder for this pressure cleaner gentleman to get off the side of the road. As he was trying to move to the side of the road,
Pressure
the
cleaner.
Land Rover overtook him at the last minute, swerved to avoid a collision, but flipped the back end of the
Like a
trailer
truck?
of the pressure cleaner apparatus, listed to the side, and then rolled on the driver's door north past the truck that had just avoided the crash with.
Oh,
That's how the
brother.
rollover crash happened. Tiger Woods was looking to overtake this pressure washing vehicle, doing so at a very high rate of speed. The pressure washing vehicle tried to get off the road there, probably out of fear for their own safety, seeing this fucking loose cannon barreling down here, just zipping through. So he's trying to get off the road to avoid a collision, avoid like a catastrophic accident. Tiger Woods, however, does not do a great job here at avoiding it, and instead clips the back, and it causes him to roll over. I will just never be able to understand this mentality demonstrated by Tiger Woods here. I don't get it. I don't see why he wouldn't just pay for an Uber, why he wouldn't have a driver, or why he insists on just driving recklessly in the first place, trying to like bully every other vehicle off the road for him. Like everyone needs to clear out of the way. We're all just NPCs in Tiger Woods' world here. So like even outside of him driving impaired, he also just drives extremely recklessly, extremely fast. He is a dangerous driver.
The individual driving that Land Rover was able to crawl out the passenger door of the car and was identified to be Mr. Tiger Woods. Our
Dun,
DUI
dun, dun. Man, he really held that on for
investigation
suspense.
here, and Mr. Woods did exemplify signs of impairment. They did several tests on him. Of course, he did explain the injuries and the surgeries that he had. We did take that into account. But they did do some in-depth roadside tests.
Let's see. Give me one second. That's good. Oh my god, that is awesome.
For making the incredibly dangerous and stupid fucking decision to drive Tiger Woods, who has endless resources, to not have to do something like that and make a decision like that. Uber, a friend, his own fucking personal driver, like endless options that aren't Tiger Woods behind the wheel of a vehicle while under the influence of substances. It's just so fucking degenerate, man. It's so scummy. Anyway, just wanted to yap about it. That's really about it. See ya.
Hello folks, today is Friday, March 27th, 2026. As usual, my name is Jake Baldino, here to talk about all the video game news that has been going on this weekend. It's a stacked week, a lot of game announcements, a lot of heavy news, but let's start off with something a little bit lighter, and that's Crimson Big Turnaround. So, you may have seen headlines, but Crimson Desert has been doing really well since it released last week, right? It first announced it sold 2 million copies in a really short period of time, and now they announced that they're up to 3 million copies. But the more significant story here is just how the game has changed so rapidly. When the game launched, Steam reviews were not looking so hot. As time has gone on, those Steam reviews have gotten better. Now with a total of 28,000 Steam reviews, it's sitting at very positive. That was a very quick change, and I think the reason is twofold. Number one, if you watched my Before You Buy, or you saw me tweet or whatever, I said the game takes a little while to get good. It's still not a perfect game. I think it is very flawed, but it's fun. But it gets way more fun once you get past the rough early hours. So I think honestly it was a lot of people kind of suffering in the beginning and noping out. I said the game wasn't for everyone. I knew people would nope out of it and just click out, but the people that stuck with it have found that it's a pretty cool game. But along with that, also, it's just been updated very, very quickly. It's been amazing to see how quickly they reacted to both review feedback and player feedback. There's, of course, the whole question behind this.
Can you even hear the video?
Why did you guys playtest this stuff and have this stuff figured out already before you sold it to us? That's a whole other conversation that I would love to dive into. But for now, the big thing is they changed a lot, right?
I feel like it's
tweaked some
very
bosses
quiet.
that just had some like insane, weird issues with difficulty with them. Not in terms of challenge.
I have to
like
turn
Dark
myself
Souls
up a
games,
bit.
actual nerfing because they felt borked or jacked up. But
How's
also
this?
fixing things like
Testing,
the horse
testing.
spawning and walking to you, to little bits of control feel stuff like with combat, to inventory space, to then the more usual stuff like visual bugs, quest bugs, and little issues like that. Some signifiers and puzzles that weren't clear. So the game has generally been improving in a really short period of time. It can fix a lot. It's still not going to be a game for everybody. I don't think this is a game that, like, 6 months from now looks completely different. But where I do think it's going to eventually look different is in terms of the developers supporting it. In February, the director did talk about adding possible DLC, maybe even like a co-op multiplayer mode or something like that. And I think there's a lot of potential because the world is so sandboxy. They can definitely do a lot with this. So it's just been interesting to see the trajectory of Crimson Desert from when it launched to now. Let me know
now
what
you
think
can hear
of the
me,
game. I know we made
and
quite a few videos about it
kind
already.
of the
We're
video.
probably gonna start toning
I don't know
that
if
down,
that's
but like,
the way.
let me know what you think about Crimson
I don't know, man. I
Desert.
guess I'll figure it out when there's actual people in here.
Did you really like what's been changed? Like, did you play minute 1, day 1, and realize some shit was messed up? Or did you try the game or watch some reviews and decide it's just not for you? Either way, that's totally fine. So let me know what you think in the comments, man.
Well,
But,
I
along with
waited
that, is
about a
Fortnite
week.
cool? That's what the kids are asking, right? Because Epic
And they
Games has
patched.
laid off over 1,000 people. With Epic Games head Tim Sweeney coming out saying in a letter that Fortnite engagement is apparently down, and they need to figure that out. But that, coupled with
Just say
things
Florida.
you hear with every closure or layoff, right? Current market conditions and struggles and things being difficult in the game industry world. It sucks because like Epic Games is a juggernaut, right? They have Unreal Engine 5, they have all these things, they have the publishing wing, they do have piles and piles of Fortnite money, a lot of which they used to battle Apple in court for a long ass time. And even still with all that, they did decide to shore things up, tighten things up, and unfortunately that has led to more people losing their jobs. Fortnite engagement is down. Yes.
Fortnite.
Is Fortnite too big to fail? That's the big question. I don't know, but I think they are going to have an issue moving ahead with keeping people interested. And I know people talk about like the changing winds of people's attention span and attention economy with things like Roblox or TikTok or even Netflix really capturing people more. But I think also the reality is sometimes like games can't last forever. Fortnite has had an incredible run, and I think it's going to continue to have a really long run. But after a while, you know, there's got to be some people dropping off. You can't play the same game forever. I say that as I literally replayed Metal Gear Solid 1 like last month, but anyway, I digress. Smaller things, Resident Evil 9 got an update. In case you missed it, the big thing with
Wish
this
I could play
update
Metal Gear
is
Solid
photo
again.
mode, of which I, you know,
Oh, wait.
the update just
Maybe I
dropped,
should
and
get
I've
that
already
new
seen
one.
people doing really cool photo mode images and
remake,
stuff like
I
that.
don't
But
know.
along with that, there is the new rumor floating around about what's the next remake and what's the deal. And what we have now is Insider Gaming reporting that Dusk Golem, the guy that has leaked a lot of Resident Evil knowledge before, he says Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake is being directed by Kazunori Kadoi and Yasuhiro Anko, same duo who directed Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake. That's a very good educated guess to make. Maybe he has the real knowledge. Either way, it makes sense. It seems like a safe bet. They've had a really good read on 2 and 4 Remake and just how they adapted those original beloved games. They did a damn good job, and I wouldn't be surprised if Capcom was like, keep doing that, guys. And from what I know, it seems like Code Veronica, the remake, has been in the works for quite some time. Maybe even in pre-production before Resident Evil 4 truly dropped. I don't know for sure, but it's just a rumbling rumor I've heard for a long time. That's nothing new. That's nothing exciting.
Yes.
Like, we know that. And I do think we're going to hopefully hear more from it soon, but that's just a guess. It's going to be a good one, though, because Code Veronica is really good. I mean, it's definitely got some flaws in the survival horror gameplay department, but some of the bosses and creatures and moments are top, like, peak Resident Evil. And in terms of more negative news, Sony has closed down a studio, another studio. They've closed down a significant amount of studios, and this new one is Dark Outlaw Games. This is a studio founded by one of the Call of Duty Zombies guys, like the guy behind it, Jason Blundell. He's kind of been having studios and trying to get projects off the ground for quite some time, but Sony has decided to can another studio that they invested in and built up, and it's just crazy. Like, I can't get into the minds of why these corporations do it, because Xbox closes a lot of studios, PlayStation closes a lot of studios. I don't know what it is to invest in people and build up an office and get people working on something, and then suddenly decide, nah, I changed my mind. There's definitely more to it, but it will never cease to surprise me and confuse me. Along with that, you also have troubles in Europe and beyond with a couple of, I believe, right, they have Spiders, Clyoton, and Cyanide. These are some of the developers behind things like, more recently, Greedfall, you know, the new Greedfall, as well as Styx games. Styx just had a new game, so yes, they are, you know, some people joke the Eurojank studios, but For a lot of their flawed, weird games they've put out over the years, I've enjoyed a lot of them. I think like my body of work, our body of work here at GameRank shows for that. We've done before you buys on a lot of these weird games, and they've just filed for insolvency, which is kind of like the equivalent of a bankruptcy. It's a little different, but ultimately not the best writing on the wall for game studios that I liked that were kind of almost in that double A-ish, you know, like light triple A tier. I don't know, it's looking dire out there, man, especially also with PlayStation 5 increasing prices. This is hot off the presses this morning. $100 increase for base PS5, and this is worldwide.
Guess that's
so
a bit loud.
PlayStation and Xbox have seen price increases. They've already seen unprecedented price increases, and now we got another one. This is crazy. The PlayStation 5 was $550 US. It is now $650. The PS5 Pro was $750. Now it is $900.
$900? Like US?
You know me, I'm Mr. Positive Gamer, but like I see price increases like this and the studio closures, and I can't just like, this is the end. I don't know what's going on. Does it sound like I'm going a little crazy? Maybe I am, but this is big. And again, like other countries have already had big price increases. North America has already had price increases, and now this just is like beyond just like $50 here and there. This is big, and I'm really curious to see what this leads to and how temporary this is going to be, because yes, the consumer electronics and RAM and that stuff is quite difficult. The economy, the cost of goods is expensive right now, but you know, when these things go up, they also have a tendency to not come back down when everything else is sorted out. So marks a new game, and Sophos marks a new game, and so far it seems like the sentiment is pretty positive. We didn't check it out, but yeah, if you want, just look it up. Also, Lords of the Fallen 2 got a new trailer and also some previews, and apparently that is shaping up to be a big improvement on the previous game as well. Also, PC Gamer did this great bit on Star Wars Zero Company, which I think is really shaping up to be something cool. This is kind of like Star Wars, but XCOM. And I think that's a brilliant idea as a Star Wars fan. Along with that, we had a bunch of new game announcements this week. A lot of this comes from an Xbox returning with Serious Sam Shatterverse. I didn't necessarily see this coming, but I love that he's still around. Also, Stalker 2 Cost of Hope. This is significant because this is the first DLC expansion for Stalker 2. They got their act together, they cleaned up a lot of the issues with the game, and now it's time for them to focus on new content like this, like big new content. And I think that's potentially really exciting. Apparently this is coming this summer. Also, we got a new look at Stranger Than Heaven, the new RGG game that just I was in when they first announced it, and now the way they showed that it takes place in the same city in multiple decades, multiple time periods, I love that. That looks like such a fun experiment, and I am looking forward to punching dudes and macheteing dudes across the early 1900s. That just seems like a wild idea. I love the environment design. I like everything going on here, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. Also, we got a new Hunter the Reckoning. This is Hunter the Reckoning Death Wish. This is apparently going to be like a first-person RPG. The little flashes of gameplay they showed at the end of the cinematic trailer remind me of kind of like an old school-ish game, like, you know, like a Xbox 360, like kind of like the Darkness or an Escape from Butcher Bay type thing. Those are like my types of games at this point. So this is hopefully pretty cool. Apparently this is coming summer 2027. Also, Rebellion, the studio who has made things like Atomfall most recently, but also all those Sniper Elite games, they're making something completely differently here. It's completely different here with Alien Deathstorm. This is like a first-person sci-fi adventure where you're shooting these weird, horrific aliens, and you're dealing with like an alien planet, flora, fauna, and dangerous weather. When I look at this, I'm just like, that's a good old-fashioned video game. That is, say it with me, kids, a video game-ass video game. Also, we got a new look at the Halloween multiplayer game. We got full multiplayer gameplay to kind of go through, and it looks exactly what I expected, but I'm not gonna lie, like, this is not what I want. I just want like a single-player game where I can run around as Michael Myers and kill people, but like, whatever. I'm definitely going to play this for like a week and have a shit ton of fun with it and then fall off of it forever. Is that too presumptuous of me? I don't know, but let me know what you guys think. Also, in terms of new game releases, last week we had, of course, Crimson Desert. We had Death Stranding 2 on PC, but this week there's a lot of stuff going on. They just announced Dying Light the Beast with this update called Restored Land. If you're looking for additional content and really more challenge, Also, Kena Bridge of Spirits is now on Switch 2, so you can get ready for the sequel. Warframe is also dropping on Switch 2, the game that just keeps on going. Along with that, one of the GameRanks team's favorite games from last year, like a kind of beat-em-up roguelite, Absalom, is now dropping on Xbox fully. And check out Screamer. This game had like no marketing, but it's a revival of a classic racing game franchise. I played a little bit of this week, and essentially it's like an anime arcade racer where you're racing through an anime storyline. A little bit of visual novel, a lot of anime cutscenes, but also game modes, like a full arcade mode, a multiplayer suite, really good visuals and soundtrack. It's definitely for like older school players, but it's cool as hell so far. Also dropping this week, Life is Strange Reunion. You know, the classic characters are back here. And last but certainly not least, Marvel Maximum Collection. This I am absolutely jumping into because it's a collection of some of my favorite old X-Men games, including the X-Men arcade beat 'em up. I will be playing as Colossus. I will take no questions, and I think that's all we got for you this week. It was a heavy week, so I figured I'd keep it short and light, but let me know what you guys think about everything going on, from the PS5 pricing debacle to Crimson Desert
900
going from 0 to hero. I mean, it didn't start at 0, but like, you know what I mean? Crimson Desert really getting its act together. All the new
That's
game
the price of a
releases,
PC.
game
Just
trailers,
get a
let me know what you thought
fucking.
about the Xbox game
Let's just
showcase,
get a
but
good
also
PC.
most importantly, let us know what you're playing in the comments down below. There's going to be a pinned comment. Just hit us up. Let us know if you're playing something new, something old. Maybe it's Marathon. Maybe it's, I don't know, the Punisher game for PlayStation 2. Whatever you're playing, new or old, let us know in the comments. It helps for our research. Good stuff coming for you guys in April. I hope you're ready. We got a lot of games we got to cover, so
Just
thank you
decided
very
this
much
would
for
be some
watching.
sort of
Hit us up in the comments. You can
scene.
yell at me directly on social media at Jake
Fucking
Baldino. The Friends Per Second
Edward
podcast
munches
is
the
dropping this weekend,
screen.
and we interviewed Cliff, or the voice actor behind Cliff in Crimson Desert. It was a fun time, so check that out if you want on Skill Up's YouTube channel. But that's it. That's all I got for you. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend. Be safe. I'm Jake Baldino. Pizza's on me.
Yeah, Domino's, I'll have 2 pepperoni pizzas, 1 veggie lover, 1 meat lover. Put it on Jake Baldino's tab, please. He said the pizza was on.
As I've been saying
Ask him.
a
He said
number
it.
of times
I have
throughout the
proof.
stream today, I
It's in the video.
think the big kind of bellwether for the next generation is going to be Xbox's participation and whether they can get their act together. Because I think we've seen with the PlayStation price hikes, with their hyperfixation on live service stuff, is often an artifact of their comfort, of the fact that they are at the top of the heap. They are king of the hill, and they don't feel threatened by anybody. They don't think anybody can touch them, so they can afford to waste time and money and resources on a multi-billion-dollar Bungie acquisition, on spending $400 million on Concord, because God knows Xbox isn't gonna give them much of a run for their money. And so a lot of this now, it was landing on the shoulders of Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer, and I think a lot of us had the feeling that maybe things were not gonna change in a quantifiable way. Whether you loved Phil Spencer or hated him, whether you loved Sarah Bond or hated her, I think it was pretty clear that what they were doing was not working. I think we can all agree on that, right? You love them or hate them, it wasn't working. This is an Xbox campaign,
Okay,
which was
this is it.
freaking
This is our
everywhere,
picture.
was one of the big initiatives. And this has been like
Then
kind
we
of
tweak.
complicated with some of the discourse, in recent like weeks after the departure of Sarah and the retirement of Phil, because this was largely, it seems, blamed on Sarah, but people found quotes from Phil Spencer talking about it back in like 2018, 2019. To be clear, Phil was the CEO, Sarah Bond was president. That means Phil is still like above Sarah Bond. He brought her in. So ultimately, an Xbox campaign was a Phil Spencer initiative. She seemed to be the head of it, and she was the head of it because Phil put her in charge of it, because she liked the idea and wanted to keep pushing it. So whether it first originated with Phil, which I think it did, or with Sarah, I think doesn't really matter. The point is that this was her initiative, this was her baby, and when you are in a corporation and you sign your name to something, if that something fails, you go down with the ship. That's just generally how it works. So in the case of Xbox, they did this big push for this is an Xbox. Everything's an Xbox. So your laptop, your handheld device that you can see right there, or your console or your TV, it's all an Xbox. And a lot of us, you know, quoted the work of art. It's a film. It won a bunch of awards. I think it was at Cannes. Oh, The Incredibles. When Syndrome says, when everyone's super, no one will be. Turns out, when everything's an Xbox, nothing will be. It totally killed all brand momentum, all brand idea, or identity, rather. It just killed it. Like, when everything is an Xbox, okay, so I don't need to engage with Xbox anymore. Easy. Done. Wasn't going to anyway, you know? It just doesn't go anywhere. And I think that that was the big miscalculation, is they thought when everything's an Xbox, that just means our ecosystem becomes the thing. They got so fixated on this idea of turning Xbox into Netflix that they lost sight of everything else. Because it starts to make sense when you think about it like Xbox. Everything is a Netflix. You can use Netflix on your laptop, on your handheld gaming device. You can use Netflix on the plane, on your phone, on your tablet, on your TV. No matter where you are, you can enjoy your Netflix content. That makes sense because it's Netflix. Gaming is just different though. It's just different, okay? Gamers have been conditioned for decades to have a platform. They like having a platform. That's just what it is. Is it stupid or brilliant? I don't know, but that's how it is, okay? And when you kill the brand identity, people just end up flocking to the other ecosystem, and that's what happened. They, you know, Sony started dominating the PS5 generation with like 2-to-1 sales of the PS5. So for every 2 consoles that would sell, or for every 3 consoles that would sell, 2 of them would be PlayStations and 1 would be an Xbox. By the end of like Phil Spencer's tenure, that had plummeted, and it was even lower. So it was something stupid like, you know, 10-to-1 was going PlayStation to Xbox. I don't know the exact stat, don't quote me on that, but it was significant. I mean, it had plummeted. Nobody was buying Xbox hardware anymore, because why would you? Everything's an Xbox. Now look, baby, it's not about hardware anymore. It's about the platform. I agree, but we also saw, as they made this massive push, Game Pass subscribers did not skyrocket. They just didn't. Their goal was to get something stupid like 100 million users signed up for Game Pass in the first 5 years, especially after the Activision Blizzard deal, and that did not happen. It just didn't, which is a problem. Let me see if I can find this article. And then other stories started coming out, like this one reported by Windows Central. Report, Microsoft gave up $300 million in Call of Duty sales as a result of Game Pass. Specifically, by bringing Black Ops 6 to Game Pass, the estimated losses were approximately $300 million that they would have made if they had sold it traditionally. By bringing it to Game Pass, they lost out on $300 million they would have otherwise made, which is... Let me pull up our technical analysis document, okay? Here it is. Here it is. That's bad, okay? That makes us sad. Losing $300 million. That's not good. And so, it's clear things were not working. Things were not working. Things were clearly dysfunctional. And so Satya Nadella stepped in and was like, we need to change this. So Phil Spencer retires. Whether he was encouraged to retire or if it really was his idea, who can say? I have the sneaking suspicion that this might have been one of those situations where he started to see that, like, I think my days may be numbered. I think Satya, I've seen a lot of people going to his office, and when I walk by, he closes the blinds. They might be prepping to hire my replacement. So I'm going to go tell him I'm retiring. Let's do that. And so it might have been something like that. That's kind of my suspicion, is that Phil could see the writing on the wall that everybody else was seeing, that like clearly things were not working out. He's like, I'm going to get out of here before the house burns down. So he left. Sarah Bond gets passed over as the replacement, and Asha Sharma gets put in place. Well,
Let's see.
since she took over, there's of
cover
course
is
been a lot of
red.
skepticism around all of this
Okay, that
because
doesn't
she
look too
is
bad.
the former head of
Chop
Core
it off
AI.
here. This looks like it's too
She's an AI executive, and it's important to give her a chance, but to also not delude yourself, okay? Like, her literal job before this was to create AI agents that replace human workers. That's like literally what her job was, okay? So for you to think that she's been hired and that is not something that Satya was like, I wonder if we could do that too. That I think is naive, okay? I think it's pretty clear her talents are in one area, and it's very unlikely that she was hired to not use her talents, you know? But her other talent historically, like going back before Xbox or before Microsoft, was in customer acquisition. So if you don't know, her previous job was at Instacart. She was like one of the VPs of customer acquisition or whatever. And getting clients in an app just in general is very, very expensive and very, very difficult. But she did it. Instacart blew up. She was super successful. That's why she got hired at Microsoft. So she's very, very good apparently at getting people to come to a platform when they have a lot of choices. That's what she's good at, in addition to replacing people with robots. But she's good at that. And I think that's why she was primarily hired in addition to her other talent set. But what we have since found out in the last couple of days, and this is specifically an article that went up this morning, is specific details over what happened when they shut down some of the big decisions that happened last go around with the previous leadership. So as I said, the This Is an Xbox campaign was probably initially come up with by Phil and his team. They hired Sarah Bond. Sarah Bond gets promoted to president. She's being groomed to become the next CEO, and this becomes her baby. She's going to run the This Is an Xbox campaign. Reporting started coming out after she resigned, basically, and left the company, that people thought she was very difficult to work with, and that this was her baby, and that this was seemingly part of the reason that she departed. Because Asha is apparently the one who was directly responsible for shutting down the This Is an Xbox thing. Microsoft's controversial Xbox marketing campaign, This Is an Xbox, was almost immediately ended after new CEO Asha Sharma came on board. They explain why. Okay. This is sort of like broader context and run up. Okay. In attempts to explain its mission, Xbox commissioned a new marketing campaign dubbed This Is an Xbox. This controversial marketing beat tried to promote Xbox as an everywhere kind of brand. Xbox has been leaning hard into the trend that people increasingly just play games wherever and aren't explicitly loyal to a specific platform. Kind of misses the point that potentially like they want a specific platform and they're just doing that because they don't have much they don't have a place to call home. But people like having a home, but if they don't have a place to call home, there's not much to do. Also, again, just to reiterate it, it seemed to me pretty clear that they were dedicated to this idea of being the Netflix of gaming, and I think they took that and ran with it. So this idea that you can watch Netflix anywhere on any device, it's all great, that was very much like double down on when it's just fundamentally different. He continues. I wrote previously about how the This Is an Xbox campaign, marketing campaign, didn't make a lot of sense. It seemed to promote the idea of not buying Xbox products. I haven't been able to find a similar marketing campaign in history that actively discouraged users from buying the promoting company's products. It also targeted users who, by Microsoft's own analysis, are not brand loyal and inevitably gloss over this type of marketing. It is weird to be like, you don't need to buy our stuff. No, you're good. You're good. I think what it was this attempt, again, in addition to the Netflix thing, they were like, people are already leaving our platform. So let's just own it and be like, yeah, you can leave our platform and still play our games and still engage with our content. I think that's what they were trying to do, but it's just a bizarre look to be like, yeah, so we're not trying to get you back. You just do whatever you want. The marketing campaign proved controversial both within Xbox customers and fans, as you can expect, but also internally, as many Xbox staffers I spoke to felt like their efforts were being undermined to promote competing products and platforms. This is something we had suspected, but hadn't been like clearly reported on, but it makes sense. I mean, obviously, if you work at Xbox, the idea of promoting like somebody's cell phone as an Xbox makes you on the Xbox team feel like, okay, well then what am I doing here? You know, like, why am I here? Indeed, Microsoft partnered with the likes of Samsung and LG on the This Is an Xbox ads. which actively discouraged users from buying Xbox hardware and insisting instead to subscribe to Xbox Cloud Gaming via their phones or TVs. Either way, it seems like the controversy had already reached incoming CEO Asha Sharma, whose first move after coming on board was to nix the entire campaign. So it was her first thing. Websites dedicated to the campaign were shuttered, leaving Xbox watchers wondering if it was a coincidence or a direct result of Asha Sharma's intervention. Microsoft just responded to our request for comment, explaining why it decided to move away here. Quote, Asha retired the "This is an Xbox" because it didn't feel like Xbox, said a Microsoft spokesperson. She is personally leading a reset of how we show up as a brand. So they're resetting the whole thing. They're resetting the whole thing. And I think it's interesting that it's framed as "This is an Xbox, didn't feel like Xbox." So, and this is something she said in the town hall meeting apparently that was reported on, which is that they want to try and find a way to like ignite the fire within the team itself at the HQ, but also to like give the brand an identity again. It seems like they identified the real problem, which was that Xbox was just this amorphous thing that didn't mean anything to anybody because everything's an Xbox, you know? And they identified that problem and now they're trying to actively reset it, which is why I'm expecting actually now that there's going to be some pretty big overhauls to the marketing approach and then also the communication approach. Microsoft hasn't always been great at marketing. The Surface RT launch was notoriously mocked for an ad showing dance choreography rather than the actual device. For example, it took the feedback on board though and followed up with some pretty legendary ads for the Surface Studio and Surface Book. Xbox has had some pretty strong eye-catching marketing beats in the past, but has arguably struggled here in recent years. The Xbox Series X and S sold well out of the gate to passionate fans, but didn't resonate with a wider, less connected, addressable audience. I'm no marketing expert, but the complete lack of visibility for these devices in the public consciousness has to have played a role here, even if general trends point to users being more interested in PC gaming as of late. Nintendo itself has reportedly cut production on the Switch 2 due to missing internal projections, and PlayStation just increased the price of the PS5 by $100 in the US due to global economic conditions. Consoles are undoubtedly having a tough time here across the board, but they continue. This is an Xbox. Marketing alone won't boost Xbox, but it's a start. New Xbox CEO Asha Sharma has touted a return to Xbox in interviews and in comments to staff internally. What that will actually look like remains to be seen, but it seems to be responding to this idea that Microsoft has been chasing imaginary audiences at the cost of what it already has. That's a good way of phrasing it. I think, again, like, people left Xbox because it seemed like there was nothing to get committed to, and it seemed like Xbox was even not that interested in their own platform, you know? And why would you invest in a platform, toaster or not, when it feels like Microsoft could shutter it at any point? You know? This doesn't make sense.
At the Nerdy Giant 3,621 donated $19.99 through Super Chat. IDK if you watched the Xbox Partner Showcase yesterday, but probably one of the biggest games got shown off. Bluey happy snaps. Move over GTA.
Move over GTA. But seriously though, it's sad just how much money the Bluey property makes. Yeah, it's because Bluey's awesome, dude. Bluey is amazing. Bluey happy snaps. Yeah, it's like a photo-powered game. Look for familiar spots from the show. Create your own scrapbook and turn in-game memories into moments for life. Coming this year. They already have one Bluey game. It's pretty rough, but that's cool to see. That's cool to see. I just Googled it. That's funny. Yeah, Bluey's baller. Yeah, no Bluey disrespect here. How dare you? It's really good. It's really good. Let's see. Hold on. Let me finish this out. Otherwise, I'll get distracted again. Since coming on board, CEO Asha Sharma has re-energized Xbox's. By the way, just to be clear, thank you for the 20. That's super generous. Thank you. I just want to be clear about that. I realized I just kind of blasted past that. Truly, thank you. Very generous. Very generous. Since coming on board, CEO Asha Sharma has re-energized Xbox's internal teams, who told me that Sharma is reducing red tape and approval processes in favor of shipping updates and reacting to feedback more quickly. Indeed, Microsoft has started shipping new fun features to the Xbox Series X and S again after a pretty hefty moratorium. Many game journalists and commentators have focused on Asha Sharma's tenure as an AI exec within Microsoft, but I'm told it's really her expertise in growing massive online audiences that led to her appointment. Instacart and Facebook Messenger are key examples of her experience here. PC gaming is winning, at least in part due to its multitasking capabilities. Given the rise of multi-monitors and multitasking as a key feature, gamers are increasingly expecting from their gaming sessions these days. Having world-class social adjacency tools in Xbox is probably going to form a part of her mission, if I had to speculate. How to promote these types of features to the wider audience will be a more complex endeavor. Does he mean like you boot up your Xbox and then you can like cast a YouTube video to be picture-in-picture on the game? I've done that. Not on console, but I could see that. Like, for example, do I have the extension? No, I don't. Oh, not on this Windows profile. I've done that where like I'll be playing a game and like, you know, I'll have it full screen, but then I'll have a picture-in-picture video here if it's like Civ 5 or Civ 6 or something, where like I don't need snappy reaction times. Like if I can have a kind of second screen, I'll do that where I do picture-in-picture. Maybe they're talking about that, where like you can project videos onto your game, so like it's more of a unified experience for multitasking. That could be interesting. I'm not sure if that's what he's talking about, but that could be interesting. The next gen Xbox Helix was revealed by Asha Sharma a few weeks ago, and it's going to be more PC-like than ever, complete with access to platforms like Steam, Epic Game Store, and more. Breaking down expectations of what an Xbox is and promoting the benefits of Helix will be a complex marketing effort that requires user education as much as it will need to emphasize the fun and usability factor. But price challenges remain a hefty consideration for Microsoft here, regardless of the marketing quality. It'll be interesting to watch how Asha Sharma repositions Xbox here given her social media savviness. I do think that's going to be interesting. I don't know what her approach is going to be, but overall, I think that's a very good article from Jez. I think this one, Papito also points out something interesting. For me, the big problem was that it coincided, the whole Xbox identity crisis coincided with the phasing out of the Xbox Series and the dramatic loss of exclusives. If they had taken better care of their console players, I don't think this marketing campaign would have gone down badly. I think it would have gone down badly regardless, because I think this campaign itself is literally like a rejection of the whole concept of like the Xbox as a platform. And so to me, it seems like that's it would have been received poorly regardless, but that's just my personal feeling. As for how she's going to handle it, I do think that she's going to try to do something major. I think she's going to try to shake it up more than maybe people are expecting. Because again, what we know is that it was not working. And what seems to be the case is that Satya brought her in to try and change things. There was some questions, or there were questions at the outset. Maybe she's being brought in to like sunset the whole console, and like she's being brought in to basically just kill it. That does not seem to be the case now. It seems much more clear that she is here to actually try and turn the ship around, and that's why they brought her in, to be like a totally fresh set of eyes. So it's gonna be really, really interesting to see how she does it. But I'm getting more and more intrigued by it. I'm like, she might actually be able to do something crazy. Is it enough to compete with PlayStation? I don't know, but honestly, anything different at this point is better, because what they were doing was so catastrophically not working that I feel like doing literally nothing would still be an improvement. So here we go.
He took my thing. Red flag.
Yeah, his outro song is kind of a banger.
So, in a move that kind of surprised nobody, but is still nonetheless frustrating and annoying, Sony has come out with a blog post confirming new price changes that are hitting their hardware lineup. Again, it's not surprising. We knew that this was almost certainly coming. The CFO of Sony, she was saying for like months that they anticipated having to raise prices with the DRAM shortage, with macroeconomic conditions and things like that. So this isn't surprising that they've done it. I'm mainly surprised, for one, that they are as steep as they are. So we'll run through this, and then I want to talk about the broader implications of this, because obviously this is bigger than any one of us at this point in the generation. If you have a PlayStation, you still have a PlayStation. It's not like I'm not going to buy one. It's really going to affect their bottom line. But I do think that this has massive implications for later this year and then for the start of next generation as well, and the end of this generation. But what exactly changed? Well, these changes are going to start on April 2nd. So they're giving people runway. If you want to do a run on the banks and, you know, buy up all the PS5s and PS5 Pros, you can do that right now at the current pricing, which already was pretty steep, but you can do that if you want. Okay. So, and some of you in chat were actually saying earlier in the stream that you had already done that you were already buying up. One of you said that you bought a PS5,
Cool.
I think Pro, and it was being delivered tomorrow, right? Yeah, Buttery Cheeks with a 5 said, after Sony's announcement today, I immediately pulled the trigger on a PS5 Pro on Amazon. It arrives tomorrow. Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably doing the same thing. What has changed? With continued pressures in the global economic landscape, we've made the decision to increase the price of PS5, PS5 Pro, and PlayStation Portal Remote Player globally. We know that these price changes, impact our community, and after careful evaluation, we found this was a necessary step to ensure we can continue to deliver innovative, high-quality gaming experiences to players worldwide. And these are the prices as outlined in each territory. PS5 in the US is going to $650. About $650. PS5 digital, so no disc drive, is $600, and the Pro is jumping all the way to $900. So my understanding, based on my memory, which is not great, is that the PS5 is going up $100, as is the digital, and the PS5 Pro is going up $150. Okay. The UK, the PS5 base goes to $570. The digital goes to $520, and then the Pro goes to $790. In Europe, yeah. Anyway, so that's happened. It's sad day. But this is not going away through the end of the generation. I'm betting you they're not going to lower prices. They'll put it on sale occasionally. It's going to be stuck here for a long time, and I think it will stay at roughly this price point through next generation too, unless there's some actual competition. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if the PlayStation 6 anchors at like $699 or $799 for the start of next generation. Because if people are still going to buy it at this price point, they'll buy it for $50 more if it's an actual leap forward. But we'll see. We'll see. He took my thing. Tom Anderson, Insider Gaming analysis. Ubisoft faces its most challenging year in its history. I think this is undoubtedly true. Challenging being perhaps even a generous word, because for them, this is a full-on make-or-break year. The release of Shadows, I think, is going to be the most consequential release, probably of the entire year, for any studio, because it will basically make or break the next few years for Ubisoft. Because, and I'm sure he's going to talk about this as we go through the article, but
recommend at least checking this out. Go and take their quiz, see what mattress lines up with you specifically, and see if it can change you like it changed me. So use the link in the description, use the QR code on screen. Right now it is Sleep Awareness Month, so you guys get 20% off any mattress that you want to pick up. I cannot recommend this enough. Thank you to Helix for sponsoring today's video, and also thank you to Helix for fixing my sleep. I never thought I'd ever be around to be able to make this video. Fortnite has been the games industry's golden child for nearly a decade now. It's largely responsible for the live service boom, for the rise of battle royales, and honestly, I think it makes perfect sense. Why? Because since launch, Fortnite has reportedly made over $42 billion. It's pulled in over 650 million registered players and still has around 110 active players just reported in 2026. It earns more than GTA 5 and Minecraft combined, and it averages around 14 million peak concurrent players day to day. To put that into perspective, that's basically like half of the existing player base on Steam at a given time, all piling into one game at once. Fortnite has launched careers for content creators. It helped make one of the biggest streams in gaming history possible, with over 600,000 people turning in to watch Drake and Ninja play back in 2021. It blurred the lines between gaming and pop culture, with crossovers in damn near every corner of media, from celebrities to movies to other games as well. It pioneered the virtual concerts as well, with Travis Scott pulling in over 12 million players and opening the door to even more events after that throughout the years. Now, I've never really brought this up, and some of you guys are probably going to be surprised by this, but while I have a lot of criticisms for Epic as a company, I have always held a lot of respect for Fortnite, because as a platform, they just kept pioneering. They kept doing things that were experimental. They just kept evolving. They were never afraid of trying something new, whether that meant new modes or huge map changes or just full-on overhauls to the game itself. It became this game that was maybe not made for everybody, but anybody could play it. And it was a huge reason that Sony and other platforms finally gave in on crossplay. It lowered the hardware barrier by proving a massive multiplayer game could run on nearly any piece of hardware. And while I'm not exactly thrilled with how much they have normalized live service, they avoided pay to win right from the start. They always kept it to monetization on cosmetics only. And they also set a standard on how much free content a game should offer players when it's a free-to-play game. But the sad truth of the matter is that the games industry just never learned the right lessons from Fortnite. Investors and executives just saw the money that they were making, and they just spent billions of dollars chasing their profits instead of trying to understand what made it work. A game this influential, this dominant, was just treated like it was something that was untouchable, a machine that would just keep printing money forever. So these guys convinced themselves that this was the model that they needed to follow, the safest bet for the business, the success that every studio should try to copy. And now that illusion is finally starting to crack. That was only just a couple weeks ago that Epic announced a roughly 15% increase to V-Bucks, the Fortnite in-game currency. The explanation they gave was that the cost of running Fortnite has gone up and that they needed help raising money to pay the bills. At the time, this just kind of felt like vague posting, but then, just 2 weeks later, Epic would announce that they were laying off 1,000 employees and trying to cut another $500 million in operating costs because far fewer players are playing Fortnite. I had to do a double take on this because I thought this was Ubisoft or something like that. The New York Times reported on this in an article titled, "Epic Games Lays Off 1,000 Employees, Citing Fortnite Slump." They write, the video game company Epic Games is laying off more than 1,000 employees, it said on Tuesday, citing a drop in the amount of time that people are spending playing Fortnite. The downturn in Fortnite engagement that started in 2025 means that we're spending significantly more than we are making. And we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded, Tim Sweeney, the company's chief executive, wrote in a blog post. This layoff, together with over $500 million of identified cost savings in contracting, marketing, and closing some open roles, puts us in a more stable place. The cut represents about 20% of the workforce at Epic Games, a company spokeswoman said. It was the second time in recent years that the company, which is based in North Carolina, had announced major job cuts. In 2023, Epic Games laid off about 830 employees, or about 16% of its workforce, citing lower profit margins for Fortnite. "I'm sorry we're here again," Sweeney wrote in his blog post. Some of the challenges Epic Games is facing are problems for the wider video game industry. Sweeney wrote, slower growth, weaker spending, a drop in sales for new video game consoles compared to the previous generation of consoles, and games competing for time against other increasingly engaging forms of entertainment. Despite Fortnite remaining one of the most successful games in the world, we've had challenges delivering consistent Fortnite magic with every season. We're only in the early stages of returning to mobile and optimizing Fortnite for the world's billions of smartphones, Sweeney wrote. Now, I'm not sure what console sales have to do with less people playing Fortnite, a game that you could quite literally play on just about any single device, but he's not wrong about the game struggling to keep up with that Fortnite magic. There was a bump back with that Star Wars crossover they had with the AI Darth Vader that everybody was trying to get to say increasingly deranged shit, but outside of moments like that, the seasonal content just hasn't had the same pull or even the same baseline level of quality. Chapter 7 had a long list of issues: frequent crashes, control problems, movement problems, invisible players, a map design that made it harder to navigate, so people really couldn't see any of the new points of interest that they put into it, and that drop in quality has shown up pretty quick. Circana's Matt Piscatella reported that PlayStation users, who make up 35% of active players, and Xbox users, who make up 31%, saw their playtime fall from 21 hours and 19 hours in 2025 to 16 hours and 15 hours respectively. That is a massive drop, and it reflects the game not only losing time, but also attention and momentum. So what's behind all of this? Well, funny you ask, because it seems like the titan that helped set the trend for live service games has now become the trend chaser themselves. Fortnite has lost a lot of attention to Roblox, and in response to this, Epic has shifted their entire focus and strategy towards user-generated content instead of their own content, which makes their own content suffer as a result of it. Now, creators can go in and they can make their own games, and they can monetize those games through cosmetic revenue sharing, something that Tim Sweeney has said has already grown into a $400 million economy. The problem is that those creator earnings are tied directly to where that player is spending their time, whether that's in the core game or in a user-generated experience or a mix of both. So while, yes, it is creating revenue, it's also cutting directly into Fortnite's own ecosystem and their own money. This is essentially money that these guys would have been making on their own, but now they're just giving a cut to these creators to hopefully try to grow into something like Roblox. Now, while losing players and playtime is obviously going to hurt this company, this is still not the real root of their problems. The problem that they have is actually the one that's eating the rest of the industry alive right now, where they were successful, but they just did not build themselves to stay successful. They built themselves to overextend. I mean, even after cutting 1,000 employees, Epic is still a company with over 4,000 developers split across Unreal Engine and Fortnite, a game that under no circumstances should require that much overhead to be able to sustain itself. And now on top of that, Epic has also torched billions of dollars in their lawsuits with Apple and Google, something that I view as an objectively good deed to society. I will give them that, because both of these companies were and largely still are running effective monopolies on their storefronts, but this is a company that is spending increasingly more money, upwards of $4.2 billion a year now, to run a single game, a single engine, and a single storefront. And if I had to guess which probably cost them the most, well, it's probably their war with Steam. For years now, Epic has tried and failed to compete with Steam, and Sweeney can go online and he can cry about fairness all he wants, but he is the one that is funding exclusives. He is the one funding free games. He is the one trying to corner a market by cornering its players, by backing a platform whose main strategy has been to give away free games while still missing some of the most basic features that people actually use on Steam. They have basically just been handing out free money to developers and free games to players, and neither one of those has translated into any kind of loyalty from their storefront. From 2019 to 2024, Epic Game Store grew by 173%, but their third-party revenue only grew by 1.6%. People would show up for the free games and then leave. They just do not want to spend money there. Epic really is no different than the rest of the games industry, and these are the people that everybody's been trying to follow. These are the same problems that's been eating away at everybody. They took their eye off the ball. They stopped focusing on the community and the success that they already had. They stopped making other games. They started chasing somebody else's bag, whether that was Roblox or Steam. Doesn't really matter. Now you got this company that's chasing two dragons at the exact same time, and they're not going to catch either one of them. They're burning tons of cash, and they should have just stayed focused on protecting what they already built. But now here they are, falling apart at the first sign of trouble. I am shocked more people aren't talking about this. This is such an important development. This is such a massive deal. I don't think people understand just how valuable of a lesson this is for the rest of the industry. I mean, for years now, we've had executives and investors talk about Fortnite like it's some golden goose, like it's a cheat code for the games industry. If they just copied it, if they just did what they did, if they just monetized it and built it the way that they built their game, then they would be able to make so much money that they would become immune to their own problems. They would just be able to spend past their mistakes because there's always going to be more money on the other side. Fortnite floundering, it losing relevance right now, this was always going to happen. This is just a reality for every game that will ever come out because, well, things just lose relevance over time. Less people become interested in it. It's not really the fault of the game in some cases, though I definitely think it's actually the fault of their game right now. But, you know, them losing money, them losing relevance right now, it shows the industry that live service, no matter how successful, cannot make up for bad spending, for lack of quality, for ignoring the audience that you already have. This is one of the biggest games in the world, proving that they can't even get away with it. These companies do not know how to protect their audiences. Either that or they're just not interested in it. They're way too busy trying to chase somebody else's. And, you know, now you have one of the biggest games in the entire world that just got caught doing the exact same thing. that should be a warning. Like, there's no other way to cut that. The question is whether or not this is something that the industry will hear, whether or not this is something that they can recover from, whether or not, let's say they did, let's say it does convince them, whether they even have enough time to be able to go back on this. According to one analyst, they're already out of time. In the last half of that New York Times article, they pivoted to a market analyst where they write, Juice Van Duren, a market analyst and professor at New York University, said that Fortnite must compete for attention not only with popular games like Roblox, but also with social media companies like TikTok and short-form videos on YouTube and other platforms. Its problems, he says, are part of a broader shift in the industry, which is growing more in China than it is in the United States. We're witnessing in real time the decline of American cultural dominance in gaming, Van Duren said. One of these landmarks, like Fortnite, is starting to feel the burn as the consumer entertainment industry is slowly moving from west to east in its financial gravity point. Oh man, I don't think I have ever felt more vindicated. I am outclassing a New York University professor. How about that, guys? Talk about a step up in the world. I have been screaming about this for the better part of 2 years on YouTube. And this is really getting to the heart of the two biggest problems for the Western games industry. First, that they can't hold on to the audiences that they already have. And second, more and more of those audiences are starting to drift east. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but this situation has only gotten worse year after year. Honestly, I don't even know if I should really even call it a problem at this point, because us players have definitely been benefiting from a lot of this competition in a huge way. But Eastern publishers have slowly but surely been chipping away at the player bases of these giant Western companies for years now, and it's gotten to the point where the foundation is starting to crack and these guys are falling through. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples because it shows just how much things have changed in just a relatively short amount of time. If I asked you guys, who do you think the king of open world RPGs are? I would guess that most of you guys would probably pipe up with From Software, just because of Elden Ring. Hell, people who don't even play their games would probably assume it's them. Then, for me, at least right behind that, it would be stuff like Neo 2 and 3, and now Crimson Desert, which just kind of came out of nowhere and seems to just get better and better the more that you play it. But rewind that clock about 10 years, and the first name that comes to mind out of anybody's mouth is going to be Bethesda. They were once the defining studio in the industry. Now they're a company that takes 12 years to release a game that is so far off the mark that the only thing people can offer these guys is skepticism or a bunch of videos making fun of them on YouTube. Now, the funny thing is that I don't even think that Starfield is the main problem here. The real problem is that it took them 12 years to make that shitty game. In that same time that it took Bethesda to make one game, an entirely new generation of players has grown up. A whole new customer base came in barely knowing these guys other than just being the studio that keeps re-releasing Skyrim. And in that same stretch of time, we got Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Elden Ring. We got The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. We got Neo 1, 2, and 3. We have a long list of RPGs that came in, took mindshare, took attention, and built fandoms of their own. And if you zoom out across the entire industry, outside of maybe first-person shooters and sports games, the Western industry has damn near surrendered every single genre to Eastern studios. They didn't just lose relevance. These guys gave it away years ago. They stopped innovating. They kept making the same thing. They took forever to be able to make their games, and they abandoned genres outright. And every year they did that, more player interest just consolidated somewhere else. Now, China is entering into the picture in a way big way. And all this is doing is just making things worse for the West. Now you have this audience with an enormous scale. They have low labor costs and a market that honestly seems a lot more interested in just focusing on gameplay rather than all of the extra baggage that Western publishers just keep piling onto their games. And that is a serious threat to these companies that are already moving way too slow and spending way too much money. I mean, guys, just look at the most beloved games this year so far. You got Neo 3, Resident Evil 9, Crimson Desert, Pokemon Pokopia, Mugenics, Slay the Spire 2, Monster Hunter Stories. 2 of those games are Western. They're both indie games. The rest are all Eastern. These guys are so cooked. Now, what makes matters even worse is that much of this industry's growth has been coming from Chinese players. people who, by and large, just do not care about Western games, largely because they probably can't even run them. Go look at their Steam reviews. Half of them are just about performance. But when something does hit with that audience, it explodes. Black Myth Wukong sold over 10 million copies in just 3 days. Slay the Spire 2 sold 3 million copies in 3 days, and 43% of those sales came from China. And if you want to see where the center of gravity is shifting, go look at the most played games in China right now. Counter-Strike, Dota 2, PUBG. That is the top 3 played games on Steam. I don't think that people are taking this seriously. This is not just about sales. This isn't about missing a quarter or having a disappointing launch. These guys are losing the habit. They are losing the default position that they used to have for entire genres. That's the part that people are not fully processing here. When players stop looking at you first, when your name stops carrying the same weight, when you have new generations of players that are growing up to be excited about somebody else's game instead of your own, you're not fixing that with a trailer, a patch, or a live service game. You are irrelevant. Western publishers have now spent years trying to engineer success from the outside in. More money, more developers, more management, more systems, more monetization, more market research, more trend chasing, more how do we capture this audience, more how do we increase our engagement. Everything is built around extracting a bigger result instead of just creating a stronger product. So what comes out on the other side is just going to feel hollow again and again. Expensive, polished, maybe technically impressive, sure, but ultimately hollow because you guys do not care about the product itself. You can feel when a game is built by people that are trying to build something that players love, and you can feel when something is built by people that are trying to secure a return. Meanwhile, a lot of these games that are actually pulling players right now understand a much simpler truth. Just make a good game, make a fun game, make something with a strong identity, a clear fantasy. Momentum really matters right now. Make something that people are going to be immediately excited to talk about. That's what you want to do. Not every single Eastern game is doing this, not every indie game is doing this, but enough of these guys are doing it that it's becoming impossible to ignore. Players want a game that feels like they know what they are rather than these games that come out that are still trying to figure out who they're being made for. They want games that commit. They want games that are confident in themselves. And in the West, for a long time now, that's just not been the case. That's why Fortnite stumbling matters so much right now. This was the untouchable one. This was the golden goose that every single executive treated like it was the blueprint. Everybody wanted one of these games. And now that even that is cracking, even that Fortnite is now proving that you can't outrun weak direction, overspending, and a drifting audience forever, that should be the lesson. These guys need to learn from it. You cannot fix this industry by chasing the next dragon. You can only fix it by remembering why players showed up. Epic is essentially just doing the exact same thing as every single other game publisher right now. They're just chasing everybody else's tails. They're running out of ideas. Either that or they are just so fixated on somebody else's money, on somebody else's audience, that they just can't get it off their mind. So the only thing that they focus on is, well, user-generated content, retention, metrics, whatever it is. We have to think about the attention economy. No, you don't. You need to think about trying to make a better game. This is what I mean about these guys being focused on trying to extract a bigger result rather than just trying to make a better product. Funny thing is, better products sell. When you look across the industry, do you look at a lot of these games that are just absolutely crushing it right now and also crushing our wallet as a result of it? The reason why these games are doing so well is because that is their only fixation. They only care about trying to make the best game that they probably can. They're not worried about trying to reach for somebody else's audience or somebody else's money. No. These guys realize that that is a byproduct. You reach that goal by getting to it through the audience that you have and through the success that you find. It's all about just making a better product with no detours. The reason why a lot of these Eastern games have been doing so well over the past couple of years is I think it's because these guys just don't have the time to be able to worry about anything else. A lot of these companies that are coming in are either fresh to the industry or they're breaking into new genres or new markets. So what ends up happening is they don't really care about things like retention or anything like that. The only thing that they care about is whether or not they can get you to show up. They'll figure out everything else after the fact. So that's what they're building these games for. They're building these games so you at least show up. And I think that's kind of one of the most important lessons of all, is that a lot of these companies got away from building games that people show up for. Kind of, need us to be there first before you start trying to take our money, right? I don't know, man. I don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to learn from this. It's like a two-sided thing. Like, one, are they actually ever going to be able to learn from any of these issues? And then two, is there actually enough time for a lot of these guys to be able to do so? I think, you know, after all the layoffs that we've seen over the past couple of years, I think that there's going to be something more drastic that's going to hit probably soon. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't know who it's all going to hit. It's probably going to hit basically every single one of these companies. They've been taking so many financial losses, massive financial losses for a while, that it's too much to ignore. It's too much for their shareholders to ignore. And you're just going to see this mass displacement of talent. You're going to see people just all over the place. A ton of indie studios, probably some of these Eastern studios are also going to pick up some of these guys as well. It's not like there aren't talented developers at some of these Western companies. Just the problem is they just have horrible leadership. Really some of the worst, most misguided leadership in the entire industry. So, I don't know, man. Live service is definitely not the answer. That's not to say that live service games can't be good or that you can't make one. The problem is that when you think it's the answer to all of your problems, you need to have a better plan than that. A lot of these guys don't. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of what's going on here. Are you celebrating the fall of a giant? I am, kind of, a little bit. Share it on social media. Share it with your friends. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. Peace.
I'll probably make a comeback.
I wanted the little girl to be dead. Whoa.
What are these shots? It's kind of janky.
This was surprisingly janky. We've looked at 2001: A Space Odyssey, but we're looking at something a little different today.
Hoover would be so pissed, dude. There is a small twist to this clip. Do you guys know who is playing the monster?
Oh, what's his name? Frickin'. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the 200th episode of VFX Artist React. This is only the 200th episode of VFX Artist React. This is actually the 340th episode we've released overall.
Oh, smokes. Because this is the 200th episode, we actually have a special gift for Ren.
What is going on?
More champagne.
No! I'm really digging this like champagne-ified Ren that we get on this React episode.
Woo! I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Just stuffed it into.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait, really?
No, it's Red Bull.
Oh. Yep, that's Red Bull.
It's really cool that so many of you have stayed with us for all these years and watched all these episodes. It's given us a backbone and a scaffolding that we can depend on as we do our other projects and experiments and things that are not always guaranteed to have an audience. It's been a huge privilege to make this show for everyone and to be able to show my friends cool visual effects clips every week.
So I think to celebrate the 200th episode, I think we should do a Harry Potter themed episode today.
Finally.
Yeah, today's the day. So we have a whole bunch of Harry Potter clips for you today, so let's just go ahead and look at this first one. So this is a really cool visual effects shot, and I want to see what you guys notice about this. It's about Mad-Eye Moody and his leg.
I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way it actually reflected the environment. This is like kind of early days for HDRIs and stuff. The contact shadows are pretty good.
Randy, if we were playing poker, at this point I'd probably fold my hand.
That's so well said. I was preparing to put mine down too. I was like, okay, I'm gonna put these down.
It's a real leg, right? It's a real prop?
You guys still haven't seen it. Pause.
Wait, I see it. I see it now. There's a green leg with a motion tracking dot behind there.
No way! Oh my gosh, they left his little foot in there.
This is actually a shot from the movie. In case anyone is confused about what we're actually seeing here, Mad-Eye Moody, his leg is actually sitting underneath him and through a hole in the chair with the metal leg attached to the front and sticking outward. Classic filmmaking technique to make someone feel like they don't have an appendage. You know, like when you put your arm in your shirt and you're like, oh, I'm missing an arm.
Yeah.
The same thing, but more advanced.
Dude, that's just his leg? Why did they bother to put it in green?
So what I couldn't figure out is why would they go through this whole process to do a whole CG leg and not paint out the foot in the background? Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, it's because this shot never went to effects.
Oh.
It was never caught by the editor. So this was just in the edit, and the editor probably editing on like a really like dark, contrasty screen. Right now, we're actually looking at it with the black levels really lifted. Watching this on my monitor, it's way harder to tell. So in the cinema and everywhere else, it's way harder to see this. It was maybe originally supposed to go to VFX, and it just never did.
Imagine the gut drop if you're like that VFX editor or whatever, and you're watching this in the theater, and you go, "Oh no." It's like already released. It's like, just don't mention it. Honestly, I really like stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. It reminds you that like they're human, which really begs the question: if he would have just had his regular black shoe on, it would have been not a mistake at all, and you would have never noticed or pointed it out. But somebody's like, "No, I need to wrap it in green and put a red dot on it."
Wait a minute. There's a hidden shoe in this shot too. Look, there it is, right there. Oh, that's the Stormburst High Top by today's sponsor, Vessi. You'll find shoes like this all around the office because Vessis are good for just about anything. They're waterproof, they're vegan, they're durable, and most importantly, they're comfy. Listen, the holidays are coming up, so it's time to get a pair. Heck, they sell more than just...
I actually happen to have a whole...
Yep, right there.
I'm curious to see what you guys want us to look at from Harry Potter. So leave a comment down below with some Harry Potter suggestions, and we'll probably look at some of those too. So yeah, thank you.
I actually happen to have a hole in the floor clip that I was prepping.
Oh, really? Oh yeah, dude, I want to see
Okay,
it.
have you guys ever heard of Little Monsters?
You amaze me.
Back then you didn't have access to computers, you had to rely on practical special effects to do your gag. And of course, when I was watching all these movies, I wanted to do these effects, but like, I couldn't cut holes in my floor. So to me, these effects were unreachable, right?
Not with that attitude.
But check this out, check this out.
I'm very confused at what I'm looking at.
The monster's trying to re-inflate into the clothes.
Boo.
It's Clint from the Shadow of Mordor sword.
Keep an eye out for monsters.
Oh! I miss the old him.
All right, so when of course monsters, when they get touched by sunlight, now he's gonna start Wicked Witch of the Westing here.
Bacon and eggs, kid. What do you want? Sunny side up or over easy? Huh?
Those aren't his feet, are they?
Whoa!
Get under the bed before the sun totally rises.
Little prosthetic feet right in front of his, and he's going down a practical hole.
There is a small twist to this clip. Do you guys know who is playing the monster?
Okay, I feel like I recognize this monster actor.
He hosts a lot of game shows.
Oh, what's his name? Freaking, is this Howie Mandel?
Yes.
This Howie Mandel?
This is Howie Mandel.
What the heck?
Oh my god.
I don't see it at all.
Yeah, not even a little.
Not even remotely. But it's like at the end there, right off the bat, it already looks a little weird. It looks like a Halloween costume with false legs.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's exactly what it is. His real feet are behind the fake feet on whatever platform that's slowly lowering him down into the hole. What's crazy is that you can't see the hole at all. It looks like I see a bit of a seam for the floorboard there, but they had to make the hole so small that his body probably couldn't fit through it. And so he's going through, and then they cut away and they come back to a different floorboard with a slightly bigger hole for the rest of his body to go through.
Yeah, you can subtly see his actual leg, kind of like between his legs there in the smoke. Yeah, and his center of gravity's not quite over his feet either. And I think somebody's in there with their hands in the shoes. Yeah, with their arms up.
Yeah,
like
they are wiggling and moving.
Yep, I think somebody's
Flexing.
doing that. I do have a bit of another magic trick shot for us to break down. Ren, you brought an Orphan Black clip a long time ago, episode
I
number
remember that.
76, actually. In the comment on the previous episode, somebody said, you know what, there's a scene in season 5 where they hand clothes back and forth. They're like, it's really well done. Can you tell us how they did it? This is one of the most natural clone shots I've actually ever seen.
I've been running my whole life. I know you have. So have I.
Feels like your classic split screen, though the camera's moving.
Camera's moving, yeah.
And it's still the same shot from when the camera entered.
No. There's no time. I could buy you time.
They just shared the spot. She put down clothes, and the other girl put down her clothes, and then they swapped them.
Coat comes off.
Coat comes off.
Orange coat and hoodie. Goes into
just
the
on the
chair.
ground.
Throws it
Clear
behind
spray.
her.
On the
Throws
chair.
it behind her. Yep.
Yeah, very smart.
Yeah.
You would have to film this in order, but if you can see both pieces of clothing the whole time, it's a chicken and egg situation. Exactly. Which shot do you do first? They did one first by hiding the other clothes.
Yeah.
Mika, I just want to save my daughter.
What about that? That's slick.
Hands out of frame. Those are different arms. They're not tethered tethered to the body.
Yeah.
There was like
That
a
was my
slight
guess.
discrepancy. Was that a little freaking? Whoa! Whoa!
Isn't that good? If you look really carefully, you can see the double's arms overlap with her shoulder just a little bit. So subtle.
It's super subtle. That's really cool.
The camera's motion controlled, so it's on basically a robot arm. So it's reproducing the motion each time. The actress has to hit the timing and the beats exactly for both takes. So right there, what did they do right there?
Look at her coat in particular on the right. You see the fade there? You see the fade?
Yeah, that was actually kind of a blatant crossfade there.
Right in front of our eyes.
Right in front of our eyes. But yeah, I mean, that's magic for you. It's all about misdirection.
It's so well matched. It's so risky too. Like you have to have somebody on set doing the shots and be like, yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Let's clear it up, wrap it up. You're not gonna be able to come back and redo that if it doesn't work.
Dude, you saw that immediately.
It is hard to see, but yeah, once you see it. And it's funny because if I was the one who was doing the blending, I would be so stinking tempted to add a digital push in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just
like to just
something.
frame it out, but
it works.
In the moment, it totally works. And shout out to the freaking choreography. Like that must have taken forever to figure out.
I'll buy you time. Time for Kira.
When she picks up the cloak, there's a hint of a blend. Whoop, right there.
Yeah, it fades through. It actually fades on top of the wing.
Yeah, so it's like she grabs it and the mask expands outwards to cover it, and then it gets cut to just the clean plate of the computer. We talked about the clone effects on Mickey 17 and how advanced those were, but it's like they've got the CG budget to do full face replacements, full head replacements, deep fakes, all that stuff. This is just compositing at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just split screening. Like this is what Zach King was doing 10 years ago on his channel. He's still doing it now too, but these are basic effects executed very cleanly.
And of course, a camera move that is repeatable.
It's been 200 episodes. If you're not subscribed by now, I don't know what to say. So, you know, I'm not going to convince you at this point.
Well, real quick before we get back to Harry Potter, speaking of effects that you don't really notice, I actually have a clip I'd like to show you.
Oh, yeah?
And then we'll get back, I promise.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw the Thunderbolts last night.
Let's do this.
And I want to show you one fight scene in particular where I'll just say there's a lot more visual effects going on than you might expect.
Oh, I should have aimed for the body. Ah, I should have aimed for the legs.
Whoa, she did not look like she
Wait.
was in the shot there.
The ground looks like it's not in
Ground
the
is
shot.
not real. What was that? Is the set real? What's
It's
real?
gotta be, but I feel like the floor isn't. I bet the floor is real, except there's a lot of shots with just pads on the floor, and those are getting painted out and moved.
Whoa.
What are these shots?
Dude, that was a shot straight out of the gravity gun.
Woo! Zing! I'm not trying to be mean, because also this is like way better than anything I could do, but like, it's kind of janky.
This was
It's kind of janky.
This was surprisingly janky. For me, it's all like the stunt pulls and stuff like that.
The motion's so weird.
The motion is weird. It's the motion that gets me on this. Like, I can get behind the bouncing of the shield and all that stuff, but like, when you get hit, you should get like thrown backwards immediately and maybe slow down as you're flying away, not accelerate as you're flying away, and also have a bit of a stuttery action before you... I don't know, man. Yeah.
Like compared to the clip that you just showed us, where it was like immaculately planned and executed to hide the difficult things, this is kind of the downside, so to speak, of being able to fix anything in post in a way, because you can go ham, and like visual effects houses are so good these days that they can bridge a lot of those gaps, but there are some where you still feel like something's off. You know, something's a little wrong.
Also, if you look at the ground, like it's very much CG ground. And there's a part where you can see her fingers on like these grates and like just a hint that slide. And just, I'm reminded of all the challenges we've had with motion tracking. Because the thing is, like, if she's on a pad and she's doing this, the pad squishes a little bit. So her fingers are technically through the floor. So even if it was perfectly tracked, you're still going to get a little bit of drift because things aren't actually on the same plane.
Yeah, that's why I brought this clip in particular, because it's kind of like a hodgepodge of like, there's some really cool things going on, and there's some really tough stuff going on as well.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. When I first saw this scene, this shot caught my eye, mainly because of the middle part of the shot.
Yeah.
Where the hair's going nuts. There's something about that was like right there. I was like, whoa,
It's
whoa.
the camera. It's the camera speed. It's like it goes and kind of stutters and then keeps going. It's like,
Yeah. So I thought that they had transitioned from one take to another at that point, or maybe they had 3 different takes that they had combined. But what is really interesting about this approach in particular is it's only 2 takes, and the transition doesn't take place there. Ren, you totally nailed it. It takes place in her final resting pose. Because, of course, with the actress, you're not going to throw her away. That's the stunt woman who gets thrown. And then once the stunt woman lands, you need to blend into Florence already on the ground. Problem is, with plate A and plate B, they had quite dissimilar perspectives on the same ground. If you try to blend in 2D between those 2 things, the entire image would warp in a really upsetting way. Digital Domain handled this, and they're left with this difficult situation of how do you rectify these 2 plates that are quite different overall. They ended up creating a CG camera that was tracked to the first shot and the second shot, but blended between the 2 in order to rectify the moves of those 2 cameras. Then they fully rotoed Stunt Woman, fully rotoed Florence, and yes, most of the environment is completely digital. They also do, for the actual final pose, really quickly enter full siege territory to blend into Florence from the Stunt Woman. And once you blend into CG, you can just animate those feet into Florence's position and then blend back into the real footage again.
I don't know why, but for some reason this plate stitch shot, which is obviously super rough and not final, for some reason that plays better in my head than what the final thing ended up being.
I agree. I think it's just the camera motion's not so crazy. The camera's just moving over and looking as opposed to doing this like, whoop,
yeah, it's that bounce down.
Invariably, whatever you capture in the camera is moving around in the 2D space on your screen. And when you start adding your artificial camera motions to that, you're messing with this little bit of like emotion that's not part of the scene, but like just part of how things are playing on your TV. And when things move weird, it catches your eye weird.
Honestly, hats off to the people who had to work on this shot, because this is an incredibly challenging shot to try to make work.
Let's talk about the void.
Fools, you should know by now.
Literally, dude.
Do not shoot your guns at people with capes who are flying.
It's so stupid. You live in the same world of the Avengers. Like, what are you doing?
Are you tired of fighting? Let me help you.
Whoa.
Cool.
The inspiration for this effect, as dark as it is actually the shadows created when the Hiroshima bomb dropped. Like, you're just immediately gone. Yeah.
That was what I was reminded of immediately when I saw that, and I moved on.
Yeah.
Because I didn't dwell on that thought.
And it's funny because when they were dialing in the shading and how black the black should be inside of the silhouette, they were also accounting in the back of their mind for when they uploaded the trailer to YouTube. And people gamma boost it. And they're like, we want to make sure that you can't just reveal all of him underneath there.
Wow.
So yeah, they were super particular.
You're safe, little one.
Oh, she got shadowed? Dang, she just died.
So intimidating. It was designed to be a real sharp contrast to the Thanos snap, which is very sad and drawn out, and this is just like, okay, I guess you're gone.
Yeah, Marvel has to invent many different ways to like kill people in a PG-13 manner.
Yeah.
Oh, is it just another dimension? Are they all not actually dead?
I know. Spoiler alert, they go into the void.
I wanted the little girl to be dead.
And then we also have a clone effect in this movie too. We're seeing it more and more.
Wow. Wow. That's really good.
Heck yeah.
Face replacements?
It's gotta be. I mean, after Deadpool stuck his finger, whatever, after Professor X's sister stuck her fingers through a guy's face and it looked fully photoreal, at this point it's like, yeah, I might as well just do a full CG human because that's easy now.
Yeah, it's like we're now at a point in time where doing a sequence like this is easier just to have a second actor and just do the whole sequence like you would and just replace the face.
And the way that they're replacing the face is very similar to what we've seen in Sinners and what we've seen in Mickey 17 as well, where they're using these really high quality deepfake approaches. What's interesting though is this shot is not.
I was gonna say, I was like, the camera isn't really moving through space, so you can easily do like a split screen, well, kind of a split screen.
For the actual contact that's being made, that's all digital manipulation of the arm, which is super interesting.
Looks like they did a very hyper-specific deepfake where they basically had her do the performance with a bunch of lighting angles. So they, like the deepfake's trained exactly on that data for that angle so you can recreate it.
And that's the fun part is we're seeing, you know, Mickey 17 and Sinners approach for that radial rig or getting it on set, all the training data in the same lighting, in the same environment. It doesn't look like they did that here, but I mean, that seems to be the way they're trending and the results are insane. One thing I will give a shout out for, and I actually want to make special mention of for Digital Domain, and I think Weta are starting to do this now as well, in their breakdowns, they're narrating the breakdown, which is so top notch. So whoever's responsible for breakdowns, keep doing that. That's really helpful.
We've looked at 2001: A Space Odyssey a couple times before on the show, but we're looking at something a little different today. There are over 200 visual effects shots for this movie, and each one of them had to go through 10 different departments. Stanley Kubrick made a big point of basically trying to film this whole movie and make it seem like it was a first-generation film pass.
What does that mean?
First generation film pass is like whatever light hits the film for the first time, that's what you get at the end. But if you're doing visual effects and whatnot, you're like doing holdout mats and you're filming stuff through that to expose another piece of film, and then you get degradations. It's like doing a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. The quality degrades every time you do that pass. But they did this in such a way that's really interesting because they don't lose quality. But on top of that, the footage I'm bringing is actually about the matte lines that you can see. A colorist on YouTube was able to get the HDR version of this movie that has way more color and contrast and dynamic range in it, and he essentially just boosted the exposure on all of the shots from the movie so that we can now actually see the original matte line.
Oh, whoa. Kubrick would be so pissed, dude.
I've been talking with the guy who did this. He sent us the original clips with the keyframed exposure differences so we can kind of see before and after. And there's a few things that I'm still kind of confused about, because sometimes it's literally just a double exposure. Like right here, you can see the stars actually shining through the spaceship because they just filmed all the shots and just re-exposed those shots. But for shots like this, you need a holdout mat.
And a holdout mat is where you have a little basically piece of black covering your film there, so that part of the film doesn't get exposed, and you later on expose something new in that spot with the rest of the film then covered so that it doesn't expose the rest of the film. Whatever you shoot the model with on your film, that's the same piece of film that you need to shoot everything else with and then project onto like your final master film strip. You can't project it onto another piece of film, then project it onto another piece of film. That's when you start going through the different generations.
And there's a really interesting technique that they employed to be able to do this while still making it look like they didn't do that. So it's a foreground that they're actually standing on, a front projection background, or matte painting or whatever, and that's on the film, and then they have to do a holdout matte for the spaceship coming down, and then the stars not to expose through the dark parts of their helmets.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
So when they did the second exposure for the spaceship, for example, that's the shape of the mat that they laid down to then not hit the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you don't even really notice the missing patch of stars.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like there should be stars there. I feel like I would notice that.
Yeah, same.
But I never did. This one's really interesting because you see the stars blip out of existence right before they actually get occluded by the ship, because there's a whole mat around it that is slightly expanded outside of the shape. And again, some of the original shot and the structure holding these spaceships up are still being exposed, even though everything's being covered in black velvet that absorbs the light and reflections, so it's not going to expose well on camera. Yeah, here we go.
Oh yeah, there's the mask. Pop. Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Pop.
see those stars disappearing? But the main thing they did differently here is that they would take the original 65mm print and then they would expose into 3 different color channels on black and white film.
Oh, wow.
So they would take their original 65mm film master and create 3 different masters that are 3 black and white film strips. So they would take that shot and they would project that through a red filter onto black and white film, so only the red light is exposing that black and white film, and then the blue light and then the green light. And when you recombine those, you get a color image. But the reason why they did that is because black and white film has much better grain, much smaller grain crystals. You don't get any of the sort of artifacts and degradation that you would get if you're trying to expose all 3 color channels to another piece of color film.
It's basically higher resolution.
Yeah, exactly. That was how they maintained that first generation quality look.
Interesting. So it wasn't first generation. They would go through at least one optical printing process, but they got around the degradation by printing effectively to an uncompressed file, aka black and white film.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me because it's like, we're only just now seeing this thanks to Alchemy Color putting this together. The movie has been out for almost 60 years, and no one's ever been able to see these mats before because it wasn't possible until the HDR version of this came out.
So what I'm learning from this is that if we really want to prove the moon landing was real, we need the HDR version of that footage. Then we can know for sure.
That's super cool. It's super cool that Alchemy Color did this. It's such an awesome like insight into like the straightforward but complicated nature of visual effects here.
Like, obviously the movie looks garbage exposed up like this, but when you actually see the original clips, they're all super crispy, and they completely hid the fact that they're just the traditional visual effects sequences that you would get from the time by splitting out the color channels into black and white film to get the better quality film crystals.
That's crazy. I'd never heard that before. That's insane.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for sticking around for 200 episodes of this. 340 technically.
Oh yeah, and we have all these Harry Potter clips we didn't get to in this episode. Subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll do a Harry Potter episode soon.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Promise.
Yeah, we got a little sidetracked today.
And leave a comment down below. What other Harry Potter clips should we look at?
This TikTok alpha male just can't stop getting arrested because Wes Watson was just arrested for multiple felony charges, including battery, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. And it looks like he'll be returning to the place that he loves to brag about, prison.
Very serious charges. One of them is false imprisonment because police say he wouldn't let the victim leave the home after all of this took place. Now he remains in jail tonight, saddled with a $115,000 bond.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, if you ask anyone, they'll tell you that he belongs in an orange jumpsuit. Maybe even himself. But I mean, if you consider any of his actions in the past, it seems like he really wants to go back to prison. You know, the place that he's bragged about over and over and basically made a part of his identity as this guy who's a reformed ex-convict, and now he shall teach you how to become a bajillionaire in alpha male style. But I guess it looks like he's getting his way. And this is one of those times where I see a headline and I'm like, yeah, wow, I'm not shocked that he allegedly did that. But also, how can you be this stupid? Because come on, dude. If you've been watching this guy at all, you already know that we're on borrowed time. Every time he showed up, it was another clip of yelling at someone, threatening someone, or acting like the toughest guy on earth. Like, there's just zero consequences for anything, I guess. And this is all while the whole time you're sitting there like, bro, do you remember how your story started? You started in prison. It was like starting a Minecraft server, and the seed that he entered just plopped him right into prison. So he had to build his way out of there. Not really, but he did things, got into prison, then got out, and now he's working on going back in, I guess. But after getting out the first time, he built his entire brand on discipline and control. And then his lack of discipline and control is getting him back in prison. So here we are. Because this time, it's an actual arrest with actual felony charges and on an actual police report laying out what they say happened. But this guy has been on my channel more times than I can remember. So let's just say if you don't recognize Wes Watson, just understand that this isn't his first time being in a situation like this. The most important thing you need to remember from his lore, I guess, would be he's already dealing with a case. This didn't happen in a vacuum. This happened while he was already in the middle of a legal issue from a past incident. Because earlier last year, he was arrested after a situation in a gym in Miami where he challenged another influencer to pull up. Then a bunch of dudes pulled up and just beat him senseless. And of course, his side of the story was, oh, it was all self-defense, which, you know, kind of is his go-to, it seems like. But I mean, to me and to a lot of other people on the internet, it looks more like him and his buddies jumped a guy all together and even used gym equipment on the guy while he was down. So Wes's version of self-defense is apparently pretty interesting, but that case is still open and he's still dealing with that. So now you have someone who's already in legal trouble and then this happens. And that's where it starts to get a lot worse for him, because it's not just about like what he's being accused of now. It's the fact that it's happening on top of everything else. So imagine just being in the middle of a case and then you catch 5 more felony charges while you're in that case. Clearly, that's not going to do anything good for you in court. At this point, just throw in the towel. You're done, because that looks like a pattern to me. And it's probably going to be framed that way in court. So what actually happened here? Well, just a warning ahead of time. This is not pretty, but to put it plain, it's beyond disgusting what he did. In a police report, the woman that Wes assaulted is just named the victim. And I'm going to maintain calling her that, just, you know, to give her as much privacy as possible. Wes apparently met the victim a little over a month ago and got engaged in the last couple of weeks.
So you guys remember just the other day, I showed you Peggy putting a ring on this girl like an asshole, only knowing the girl for only a month, right? Well, that same girl that he got down on his knees and put the ring on is the same girl just a couple days later, maybe the one to put Peggy in prison for a really long time.
So from everything that's being reported, the dynamic already sounded very controlling, to put it lightly. So I guess when she went to a Miami Heat game with a female friend, that turned into a trigger for everything that followed. According to that arrest report, she got back to his residence early that Sunday morning after the game. And by the way, that's the residence that he recently flexed on Academics' YouTube channel, like just a few months ago. Because he recently moved into a new spot and he couldn't help himself but flex his rented spot for everyone to see on YouTube. Actually, correction there, it was not Academics, it was DJ Vlad who did the house tour with him. But I've never understood the whole thing of like why you want to flaunt where you're living and like show the world where you live. Also, the fact that like you're flaunting a place that you're renting as well just does not make sense to me. Is this the woman? I think so. Oh, was he engaged to her here?
Met this girl when she was pregnant with another man's kid. And then I raised the baby through the whole pregnancy. I was with them, paid everything, raised the baby till 4 years or 3 years old, and then they just dip out and act like you did nothing.
Maybe don't be a hothead. Maybe don't scare away everyone. Like, bro, I feel like so many of these like self-proclaimed alpha males, they're like, hey, the woman shouldn't do anything and the men should work. And then suddenly they're like, I hate how men are only looked at as a piggy bank. And it's like, okay, well, be more than just a piggy bank then. Because I have a feeling there's a whole lot more to this story than what he's saying right here. I don't know, but I digress. Okay, so police say that he'd been sent a screenshot or a clip of her at the game and got angry because she was showing cleavage in a video. So how can I say this without getting this video struck down? He threatened to remove a procedure he paid for that involved said cleavage because she had cleavage on display, I guess, during a basketball game. Are we good? Did the video get nuked? I don't know, like,
Maybe that's what
I'm paraphrasing. He said it in a way worse way than that. Buddy, if you're buying those things for women, that's permanent. That's her body now. You don't have a say of that. What she does with her body from there on out, that's up to her. Now, obviously, this is alleged, but if this is true, that's just a whole new level of being possessive. Like, that is not normal jealousy. That is weird ownership mentality. So, I mean, he's just thinking that because he pays for something for a woman, he now has ownership of that woman, which might have something to do with why he claims he can't see his daughter. This is just creepy. And also, this is days after he allegedly proposed. So I guess this is supposed to be the honeymoon phase. Isn't this supposed to be like the time where all couples get along? Who knows? But according to police, it turned into a violent confrontation inside of his home. And he allegedly grabbed her by the neck, shook her, grabbed her arms, pushed her, and dragged her by the hair. And then repeatedly struck her. And at one point, police say that he slammed her head into a table hard enough to leave her bleeding from the forehead. She also allegedly had scratches on her face, bruises on her body, and then the report says that the injuries were visible all over her. So according to the report, this kept going, and she was allegedly being stopped from leaving. Her phone was taken, people in the house were watching this happen and not stepping in, and she was being threatened the entire time. Yeah, you heard me right. His security guard and his friend, Jose, I guess watched this whole thing happen and didn't do anything. And apparently the security said it was the victim's fault.
The third witness was the defendant's security guard, who told the victim to take accountability for her actions of wearing a shirt which exposed her breast. So this asshole security guard is sitting there and telling her she shouldn't be going out to a basketball game showing her. So what kind of world is this?
Excuse me, what? Put this dude in jail as well. Like, that what? Shout out John Bravo, by the way, for covering this. But, like, I wonder if this is the security guard that is also in this mansion video. Because at one point, you have this, like, super, super funny LARP. At one point, they get into the kitchen, and the security guard just, like, randomly positions himself in frame just to be like, yeah, look at me. I'm here as security. We're posted up, you feel?
In my downtime, I'm Martha Stewart, and I design like this. I ain't been to the feds. I done state time, but
bro, what are you doing? Bro's just like checking the perimeters or something. Dude, you know you're safe. You've been there. Like, what is that? Bro just like goes up like this. Like, he's just like, what are you securing, dog? It's not like they are in a house. They've been in the house before Academics showed up. No, it's not Academics. Before DJ Vlad showed up. And now he's just like securing the perimeter in the kitchen, I guess. These guys are LARPing. It's so funny. If you're hired as security, why aren't you just being security? Why do you have to throw in all the charades and theater acts? It just doesn't make sense. I don't know, but I am wondering if it's that guy, because
that seems to be the only security guard in the area during the whole thing. Because as they do the whole tour, I guess the security guard is just kind of lingering and positioning himself in frame throughout the whole video as if DJ Vlad is randomly going to jump Wes Watson. But anyway, I digress. And I am going to include the whole report from John Bravo as well, because sharing pictures of the victim just doesn't feel right. But Bravo also saw the images and has given a description of how bad it all was.
Now, I've seen photos, some photos, not all of them, of the injuries on the girl. I saw a cut, a gash in her head. I saw bruising on her right cheek. And I know that she has a black eye now. I didn't see any of the body injuries, but I saw her face. So obviously this happened, and obviously he wouldn't have been charged with 5 felonies as a result if this wasn't real.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so sick. Like, we knew he had anger problems, but this is just a whole new level. And the fact that this guy is a mindset coach, are we serious here now? People are paying this dude for mindset advice. Meanwhile, he can't even control himself. I'm gonna sit here and state the obvious. Please do not take mindset advice from someone who cannot control themselves. Because apparently he threatened to take her life and her entire family's life while also saying that he can't go to jail. What is this guy on? But apparently he didn't want her to leave, so he kept her there until the next day. So essentially this went on for 2 days, which is where the false imprisonment charge came from. So now you can see why this turned into 5 felony charges and not just 1. This wasn't just being described as one shove during an argument. No, the way the police laid it all out is this was violence, threats, intimidation, confinement, and interference all wrapped up in one situation. And in the report, you can see that she is 5'1", 125 pounds, while he's listed as 6'1", 245 pounds. I am sure he is currently celebrating that they put his height as 6'1", because that was a big point for him earlier, because he was listed as like 5'9", and he's had multiple crash outs because of that. Maybe all of this was just to prove that he was actually 6'1". Who knows? I don't believe it though. But also, like, here's the main question. What happens to him from here?
Watson was in bond court on Thursday facing several charges where the state laid out even more details about what happened early Sunday morning.
He had his own personal employees threaten her. He had his own personal employees oversee her to see what she was doing on the phone, Your Honor. I think there's even made reference to victims that she effectively felt that she was being held hostage.
Yeah, because this isn't just one charge, and it's not happening in isolation. Right now, he's facing 5 felony charges in Broward County, and a bond set at $115,000. And a judge has already put restrictions in place, including ordering him to stay away from the victim, avoiding drugs and alcohol, and staying away from weapons. And at the same time, that Miami-Dade case from earlier this year is still active. So you have 2 separate situations in 2 different counties, both involving violence, and both are still pending. And that's where it starts to stack up. Now, obviously, everything still has to go through the process. There's going to be hearings and there's going to be motions. And this is going to take time to play out. And there's also reports that Wes may have actually tried to post bail on this case, thinking he was going to get out, only for a judge in his other case to step in and revoke that, which would mean he's still sitting in jail right now. So, I mean, if that's true, this is brutal and definitely deserved, because imagine posting over $100,000 thinking you're walking out, and then another case immediately shuts it down. And at the end of the day, this is someone who's already had a second chance. He's had a third chance. He's had so many chances at this point. And then he built this entire platform on accountability and self-control and mindset. And he goes out and he does all this. But I guess now it really seems like all of this is catching up to him. So I guess we just have to wait and see what happens. But real quick, trade offer. I get absolutely nothing. You get free GamerSub samples. Just go to gamersubs.gg/Atozy, scroll all the way down, and we've restocked the free samples because they were sold out the other day, but now they're back in stock. Actually, I don't get nothing. This is kind of just like a cool investment by GamerSubs because they're so confident in their product that, hey, you get a free product. If you enjoy it, feel free to come back and support the business. And if you do so, you get 10% off using code Atozy. This is the current samples I have, which is raw meat by Papa Meat. But as I've stated probably a bazillion times here on this channel, my favorite is currently the sugar-free lemonade because it is the best sugar-free lemonade I've ever tasted in my life. And you're currently getting 100 servings in 1 canister of lemonade, so I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
And this one's pretty good too.
And by free, yes, free. You don't even need your credit card details or anything. And if you do buy a product, you are getting me closer to number 1, having my own shaker cup, and number 2, getting my own flavor. which is definitely the goal for this year. But if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace.
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think I ever need to see this much of Kevin Bacon, but I'm 100% sure that's why you are here. Also, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, so there's a disclaimer in this. There's going to be a discussion on quantum mechanics because the movie postulates it. I think what happened is some Hollywood executive got a hold of something in the year 2000. It's like, oh, we should totally make them say this because the stuff they say makes no sense. In the events of the Hollow Man, things are absolutely ridiculous.
Oh,
I'm
man.
100% going to explain in excruciating detail why we would simply just like lose this person and never be able to find them again, and then the lab would eventually start smelling terrible a few days later. As the government
I've already seen this one.
create a serum capable
Jesus.
of rendering
Why
somebody
are you playing one
completely
I've already seen?
invisible, the problem actually
You
appears
got a
to
whole
bring you back to
library of
visibility. As the Baconator steps up as a test
To the Daily Bugle. And what ends up happening here is Peter Parker is being approached by Robbie Robertson and J. Jonah Jameson to go back to the Savage Land. Now, the reason why I say to go back is because in Amazing Spider-Man issues 103 and 104, Peter had already been there. And in fact, that involved a guy by the name of Richard Culkin. That Richard had come across a being called Gog, and that the Daily Bugle, in learning about all of this, wanted Peter Parker to go investigate. Potentially the idea that it could make for just great news headlines, and J. Jonah Jameson could basically sell a whole bunch of copies of the paper. When Peter Parker went down there and Peter Parker encountered Gog, he almost died. And that's why Peter does not want to go back. And so at the end of the day, J. Jonah Jameson asked the question, what's it going to take for you to get there? Right? And Peter Parker just says, I mean, it'll take more money because you notoriously underpay me. And so ultimately Jameson says yes. And Peter Parker goes on the expedition alongside Warren and Tanya to the Savage Land. Now, that takes us into the nature of the Savage Land, specifically what it is that's going on. Now, we do get an explanation from Chris Claremont because he's the one that's writing this story, so we'll kind of fill those gaps as time goes on. But he doesn't really do much to explain the Savage Land in Marvel Comics. And I think that while Peter Parker does become Man-Spider in this place, the Savage Land is a spot that I think a lot of people are familiar with, but almost nobody knows about. So the original explanation, and the one that's really kind of preferred when it comes to the nature of the Savage Land, is that it's effectively a game preserve. That at some point in Earth's history, the Beyonders had reached out to a group called the Nuwali. This is long before Al Ewing retconned the nature of the Beyonders. This is back when they were just beings that existed outside the multiverse and were curious about the main Marvel universe. What ends up happening is that all these creatures from across the world are put down in the Savage Land when that area of Antarctica is turned into a lush jungle. And so that's why you see all kinds of critters down here, dinosaurs and the whole 9 yards. Now, it also does have a whole other history involving Magneto, which we'll also talk about because that becomes a part of this. But the Savage Land is exactly what it sounds like. It's a very, very dangerous place. And so what ends up going on is that Chris Claremont kind of gives us this statement where he says, the terrain below is desolate, as forbidding and inhospitable as any on Earth, and yet it possesses a fierce elemental beauty that cannot help but stir the soul. And so as these guys are descending down into the Savage Land, they're attacked by a dinosaur. Right? And what happens is exactly what you would think happens. The helicopters hit, the thing comes crashing down, Peter Parker and Tanya parachute. Because Warren's got wings, he doesn't really have to worry about that too much. It almost looks like they're stranded. But one of the things Peter Parker says is that this crew had actually landed up the cliff near the top. Right? They looked okay, they waved their radio as I floated by. So they're probably calling for help right now, which was effectively Chris Claremont telling us now they have an out. They're not stranded down here. Not only that, Warren chimes in and says the Navy has an emergency station on the far side of the mountains. I think I should fly us out to it. And at that point, Tanya says, no, right? We can't leave. Like, we just got here. And so Warren's kind of the voice of reason, right? He says, like, we've got no supplies. If we stay, we are asking for trouble. We are not equipped to stay here long term. And so Peter's just kind of like, I mean, we've come this far, Warren. Like, we've come this far, man. Like, the least we can do is have a look around. Now, of course, Peter's also got money on the line. But more so than that, there was kind of a thing that went on here, right? One of the things that J. Jonah Jameson told Peter, if you do not come back with some kind of an award-winning story, don't come back at all. So it's not just a matter of the fact that Peter's got money on the line. His job is on the line. His livelihood is on the line. Now, one of the things to know, and the reason why this matters, is that if this story came out right now, you would kind of dismiss it as, oh, you know, it's just Jameson being Jameson. No. Back during this era in Marvel Comics, when J. Jonah Jameson told Peter, come back with a story or don't come back at all, he meant it, right? This was a time when you could lose your job, right? When the statements made by guys like J. Jonah Jameson were very, very real because the characters felt very, very real. In a lot of ways now in Marvel Comics, I mean, truth to tell, I wouldn't go so far as to say the characters feel cartoonish, but in a lot of ways, it never really feels like there's actual stakes to anybody making a mistake or not doing what they were instructed to do, if that makes any sense. And so when Peter goes to grab Tanya, she kind of thanks him initially for backing her up, but he tells her, I wasn't really, but it'll be dark soon, and in this neighborhood, it gets really dark, really fast, because there are no lights here. When the sun sets, there's no street lamps, there's no torches, no nothing, so we won't be able to see anything. And he says, I think we'll be better off finding shelter for the night before leaving first thing in the morning. But he says, in the meantime, I guess there's not much harm in some sightseeing. As I recall, these highlands are pretty barren. Most of the people who live here, or whatever dangerous threats exist out here, they live down in the jungle itself. But in the midst of that, Warren Worthington tells them, I found something. Right? And here's what's really interesting. And Chris Claremont fills us in. He says, almost completely filling the valley below, its great shattered dome, towering above one of the natural geothermal pits that help warm the Savage Land and preserve its prehistoric environment. Here stands a ruined, futuristic city. It's a monument to the dreams of an ancient reincarnated mad god named Garok, dreams that almost destroyed the Savage Land and in the end consumed the god himself. Now, that takes place in X-Men issues 113 and 116. Some people call it the Savage Land Saga. To a degree, that's true. It kind of goes by different names depending on who you're talking to. But Galrock and Zaldane are two characters that you are very familiar with if you ever watched X-Men the animated series. The long and short of it is that following the original events involving Magneto and so on, which again we'll also talk about here in a minute, Garok had basically tried to seize control of this place, and for a time he almost did. It was almost kind of like a civil war within the Savage Land itself. That's the nature of this place. There's always some group vying for power, trying to control everybody else and overthrow whoever it is that's leading at that point in time. Ultimately, Garok was killed. But one of the funny statements that's made here by Warren is in looking at all of this. He says, one thing about the X-Men, you can usually tell where they've been. Right? And Peter just says, we could wander through that place for years and still only ever see a fraction of it, right? It's that huge. And that's where he kind of talks to himself about the idea that he should certainly get some pictures. But what ends up going on is in the middle of all this, they're attacked by the denizens of the Savage Land, right? Basically barbarians, for lack of a better word. Now, these were effectively servants of Garok, kind of the last holdouts that follow his lead, but they're actually being led by somebody else at this point. Now, where Warren steps in and tries to fight these guys, suddenly his senses go haywire. Peter Parker, on the other hand, still maintains a secret identity at this point within Marvel Comics, but he's kind of having this internal debate on whether or not he should just cast his identity aside and start facing off against these guys, keeping in mind that now it will become public knowledge, not necessarily for the Savage Land mutates, but specifically for someone like Tanya, who's standing right there next to him. And so one of the things that Tanya tells him is like, we're backing up against the cliff at the edge of a river. And Peter's just like, perfect, and like pushes her over the cliff. Right? She splashes into the water and just goes whisking away. But at that point, while it doesn't necessarily kill her, it does give Peter the chance to put on his costume and jump into the fight. But almost as soon as he takes these guys out, his senses start to go haywire, only for him to be subdued by Barbarous. And for those of you guys who are familiar with Barbarous in Marvel Comics, you probably know, just like I know, that this guy had to have been an inspiration for the character of Goro in Mortal Kombat. There's no way he wasn't. But Peter is basically overtaken, right? And so what ends up happening is he wakes up in a lab. And this is where the man-spider element comes into play. Because what ends up happening is that in seeing all of this, right, he says, I'm manacled to a table. My captors are not taking any chances. Angel is still out cold, and I do not like the looks of that machine, especially since it's pointed at me. And I think I can break free, but I've got to stall for time, get my strength back. But then he starts looking around like, where in the heck is he? And that's where he's met by a guy that he has never seen before. Now, this guy's name is Brainchild, and he's actually a Savage Land mutate. So, wind the clock back in Marvel Comics. During the first real meaningful appearance of the Savage Land in Marvel, specifically in relation to the X-Men, Magneto had shown up here and turned it into a base of operations. When he did, he used this device to basically mutate individuals within the Savage Land, providing them with abilities. they became the Savage Land mutates. And what ends up happening is when the X-Men arrive on the scene, in exploring the Savage Land, they face off against Magneto, and they're joined by Kazar, who we'll talk about here in a second because he does become a part of the story. Now, following Magneto's defeat, that's when Garrock comes into play. Garrock had brought these guys under his control and tried to seize control of the Savage Land. Of course, ultimately Garrock was killed, and now these guys are kind of operating of their own accord. But they've taken the machinery of Magneto and started using it for their own purposes. And that's what Brainchild says, right? You are awake, right? Incredible. Barbarous beating would have crushed a dozen ordinary men. Welcome, human, to the citadel of our creator, Magneto. I am called Brainchild, and I am master here. Blind Gaza and the four-armed Barbarous you have already met. My emerald-skinned comrade is Amphibious, and the young lady Vertigo. We are mutants. Now, Vertigo's cool. She gets that name because she causes vertigo in people, right? She starts making your world go topsy-turvy. But Brainchild says, soon, with your help and the angels, we will be the rulers of the Savage Land. This arcane device was used by Magneto to evolve us from simple swamp savages into our present superpowered incarnations. When Angel and his fellow X-Men defeated Magneto, this genetic transformer was destroyed. We have since repaired it and added some interesting modifications. Now, in addition to performing its original function, it can also devolve any living being to its primordial beginnings. We had originally planned to test our device on Kazar, but now that you and Angel are here, the honor will be yours. Now, this was an important distinction here, because this was basically Marvel and Chris Claremont kind of toying with the idea that Spider-Man, if he was ever devolved on an evolutionary level, would basically turn into a gigantic spider, hence the nature of Man-Spider. Now, the reason why I say that this is so important is because this becomes the foundation for storylines like The Other, right? This is where they draw that kind of concept from. Up until this point in time, as far as I'm aware, the general idea of Peter Parker was that he was just bitten by a radioactive spider and gained the proportional powers of a spider, which pretty much all you guys are aware of. But over the years, up until this point, Marvel had started toying with the difference between mutants and mutates. And as a quick explanation here, mutants are exactly what they sound like. People with X genes that are activated at some point in time and they develop powers. Mutates are individuals whose entire genetic structure has been modified in such a way that you cannot go back to their original form. Peter Parker is one of those. And so that's kind of the cool thing that Claremont was toying with. Because his DNA is forever changed, any kind of de-evolution that would happen to him would take him back to a form that is a primitive reflection of what his DNA currently is within Marvel Comics. It's a genius strategy, to be honest, when it comes to storytelling. And so in this moment, and in hearing this, Peter Parker says, that, I think, is my cue, because I am not going to be de-evolved. So he says, sorry, Big Brain, but flawed though I may be, I like myself the way that I am. And in that moment, Vertigo attacks him at the direction of Brainchild. And so Claremont tells us, the harder Spider-Man fights the disorienting effects of Vertigo's power, the faster his world seems to spin around in circles. But still, he struggles with all his strength of sinew and will in a desperate attempt to break free. An attempt that is doomed to failure from the moment Brainchild activates the Transformer. As the moments slide by, he finds it more difficult to think. Sentences drift out of reach, then words, leaving him only primal physical feelings and responses like rage, pain, fear, hatred, and lust. As simply, as easily as an onion stripped of its skin, so is Spider-Man stripped of his humanity. He feels himself drowning in a black, oily whirlpool within his own mind. A terrible, terrifying scream follows him down into the darkness as he's pulled inexorably under. At the last instant, with his last rational thought, he realizes that the scream is his. Now, FYI, Chris Claremont wrote this way all the time. It's why I loved Chris Claremont's work on the X-Men. You can see why his X-Men run was so incredibly popular. The guy was gifted in how he would phrase things. But this transitions us over to Kazar. Now, Kazar's story does pick up with Tanya and then circles back into Man-Spider. And it's actually kind of cool. So Kazar is one of these guys that is criminally underappreciated in Marvel Comics, very much like Conan the Barbarian. Technically, Marvel didn't own the rights to Conan, which is why you don't necessarily see Conan anymore. But stories like Savage Avengers were basically focused on an Avengers team where Conan led it. Well, the bigger point that I'm making here is that Marvel has these characters that, whether they own the character or the rights are lent out to them, are oftentimes underappreciated characters. Kazar's one of them. He's essentially Marvel's version of Tarzan in a lot of ways, but he's kind of like a freedom fighter within the Savage Land, right? He protects the place against whatever threats exist out there. What's also cool is that Karl Lykos is alive, and Karl Lykos is down here with Kazar. And in fact, Tanya had been rescued by both Karl and Kazar. And so that's where you have Chris Claremont kind of filling in the gaps between what happened with Magneto and the X-Men and what happened here now. Because once Tanya wakes up, then basically Kazar fills her in on everything. He says, our goal is the ruined citadel where you and your friends were attacked. Its construction was ordered by the mad god Garok and his high priestess Zaldin. Together, they meant to conquer the Savage Land. With the aid of the mutant X-Men, we ended Garok's reign of terror. He himself was slain. His priestess was taken prisoner. His legions dispersed. Their power forever broken, or so we thought. Lately, we've heard rumors of a resurgence of this cult, led by the cadre of superpowered mutants created years ago by the X-Men's foe Magneto. And so what's effectively happened here is that Peter and Angel and Tanya have just kind of unwittingly stumbled into a war within the Savage Land. This is seeming to have been going on for quite some time. Though while this is kind of like the first opening salvo, the fact is, it's been building up to this point. And so the problem is that in the midst of this discussion, suddenly Angel and Peter show up in their mutated forms. And Tanya doesn't initially know what's going on. No one really does, right? She's just like, wow, like Karl was hit by a gigantic bird, right? Something struck him. And she's like, I can see it in the firelight. And she says, those scraps of costume, right? It can't be, but it is. And you end up seeing Warren Worthington basically de-evolve down into just this nightmarish bird form. But while that happens, Claremont tells us his cry is as inhuman as his appearance, as he dives once more toward the camp, scattering Tonga's warriors with his wings, slashing at them with beak and razor-sharp claws. He is a demon incarnate, possessed by a berserker rage that can only be sated with blood. At the same moment, nearby, other claws hurl Kazar to the ground. And that's when he realizes he's being pinned by Peter, right? Peter is just like this nightmarish, mutated spider form. Now, Kazar's incredibly strong and incredibly durable, but against this version of Peter, it's kind of nuts. But here's the funny thing about this, is that Chris Claremont tells us what's going on with Peter Parker, and it's not as clear-cut as Peter Parker having lost himself entirely. That he actually says, the facade has changed beyond all recognition, yet within the monster shell, a human soul battles for supremacy, and for a moment, triumphs, because he pulls himself off of Kazar. And Claremont says, in those seconds, Peter Parker realizes what he has become, what he was about to do, and he screams in agony to the uncaring heavens, howling. So while the angel obeys an urge as old as life itself and soars skyward with a captive, Spider-Man merely leaves. And so once the threat's over with and Tanya's essentially whisked away, all you have left is Tonga and Kazar and Karl, who are trying to figure out what to do. Now, of course, Tonga says, right, 11 dead, 19 wounded, and most of those will die by the morning. And so the issue that they're dealing with here is that they just don't have enough numbers. They don't have enough people to be able to launch a full-scale attack against Brainchild and everybody else within the Citadel. And so what they have